What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and I'm here with a massive lineup. We're here with Mr. Matty from MrMattyPlays. He's one of the people you guys have seen me on the H.A.M Radio broadcast with him. And then Lone is next to him. Right now, all I'm seeing is a blue Skype because he doesn't show his video. So I'll have to get something. I'll get the Predator face or something like that, and I'll stick it there. Yeah. And then we've got Reg, as always, and Silver, and Skill Up, who was nice enough to have me jump on his podcast recently. And we started talking about things. We agree on all things good, like that Origins is just a mediocre game. So we'll be talking about that later, regardless of what Lone says. And Matty, because Matty wasn't in love with it either. So
no,
it'll be interesting to see what people think. But I want to give them a chance to talk about their channel and talk about what they do and if they have anything cool coming up for the holidays. So Skill Up, you got anything amazing, and what do you do for your channel?
My name's Skill Up. I focus mainly on reviews, so I guess similar to Karak, but in a very, very different way than Karak does. I'm at the moment working on a review for The Division 1.8, the release that they put out, which is in really good shape, actually. And then I'm going to go back and review a few other games over the holidays. I kind of like to focus on games that have already come out and review them after they've been out for a while, versus reviewing them when they've just sort of come in. So that's my focus, and I'm looking forward to the break. It's going to be nice to go through that old back catalog and dig through that.
Excellent. And what about you, Silver? What are you doing on your channel?
Let's Plays, and I've actually started streaming a bit. I started streaming Ghost Recon Wildlands when the Predator mission came out. I played that with Kadlama and streamed it. So I've sort of started over with Ghost Recon Wildlands with a stream, showing how to play the game on extreme difficulty without any HUD elements at all, which is a very different experience.
Sounds like SOCOM.
Yeah. Did you beat Predator?
Yeah, we did. We killed him. It took us like 1 hour and an hour and a half. But we did make it difficult for ourselves because we didn't use thermal vision or anything. And so at nighttime we had to use flares to illuminate stuff, which really created this awesome atmosphere fighting him with just this like luminescent lighting. It looked really, really awesome in the jungle.
Very cool. So check his channel out. All these will be in the description, as always. What about you, Reg?
Nothing on YouTube, really. But I did start a couple of weeks ago streaming on Mixer. So I'm doing silly games there, basically cringy games like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, because that's my jam, and that's, I think, very fun streaming and just shooting the shit at the game I'm playing with the audience.
Excellent. And namely Silver. What about you, Matty?
Well, since it's that time of the year as a news channel, there's no news usually in December, so it's just discussion central for me. Anything I find remotely intriguing in gaming, I just take this month to give my take on it. So that's all I've been doing. Rockstar, Bethesda, EA. I mean, EA's certainly been in the news loop, I should say. But yeah, just that's all I've been doing, really. Just lots of discussion videos.
Did I go crazy, Matty, or did Rockstar do a gun that you unlock in Red Dead?
I don't know about that. I thought you were going to mention the release timeline I posted, where they have like a new game every year, and that's what I talked about. But I actually hadn't heard of that. Yeah.
Did anybody else hear about that?
GB mentioned that last time, like that they introduced, I think, a weapon in a mission. If you complete it, you get it in Red Dead Redemption 2 as well. I think it's like a cross promotion unlock.
When GB talked about it, I reversed the story in my brain when he was talking. What I thought he was saying was that when you unlock it, it's just a Red Dead revolver. So I was like, oh. And then I went online and people are like, what the fuck? You're like, they're already having us unlock stuff for Red Dead. Like, we're screwed. And I was all, no, that doesn't make any sense. And of course, the moment you say that out loud, you know that something's wrong. Whenever you have to say it doesn't make sense, most likely that's what's just happened. So yeah, it did. What about you there, Mr. Lone? What are you working on? You got a Twitch channel?
Yeah, well, I've been doing tons of more streaming. I find it much more enjoyable than making YouTube content nowadays. I say it's easier, but you can just sit down, play games, and there's no editing to do afterwards. So it's much more enjoyable, especially after I've come home from work. So yeah, I've been doing a lot more of that, but I wanted to get back into my channel after taking like a break for a month or so. So yeah, we're slowly getting there.
Very cool. And Lone, if you guys remember on a past podcast, I had talked about Lone doing the collab mode with some other people and stuff like that. And some of that's sort of fallen to the wayside just because of the way YouTube is. But you should definitely check out all these people's channels, because I'm going to tell you right now, I wouldn't invite them on if I didn't actually like their stuff. They would just be, I would just tweet at them. But all these guys have really
distance.
Yeah, exactly. All these guys have really amazing content. You should check out their stuff. And it's one of the things I talked about on Twitter a couple days ago, where when I see like Skill Up, Matty, Lone, any of us have any, and I mention us because we're the ones who mainly focus on channels. But when I see success, to me, it's awesome, because it's like more voices, more discussion, more people involved. There can't be anything better. But before we move on, I wanted to officially do the ACG International comic book cover that I had commissioned. So I did this for Matty and for Lone, where where we did a comic book cover. But basically, a couple weeks ago, somebody in a post said they heard us all talking, and they said, do we really want these guys protecting our video game worlds? And I think it was Reg and I arguing over towers in Assassin's Creed, and like, you know, the back and forth of that. And so
that's so cool.
Vlad Mamoti did this, and I want to thank him very much. I commissioned him to do it, but you've got Reg, me, you've got Silver, and or you've got GB, and you've got Silver there, and you've got like the Minecraft. He did Minecraft down on the planet, and it's like various different bad guys and stuff. Cool. So when I asked,
super talented, scary.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary how talented he is. So Reg and Silver and GB, when I talk to him, if you guys can give me your physical addresses, I'll print it out.
That's amazing.
This is all a ploy for Karak to get your addresses, by the way.
He sent Lone and I after he gave us that cover.
Yeah. When I first told him, everybody's like, you know, you got to protect yourself. So you're like, why? Why do you need my home address?
No, I was like, whatever. Is it a Karak crate? I want one.
That's okay. Because do you know what my wife thought? My wife saw your email, Reg, and it said, "Is it a Karak crate?" My wife is like, "I knew someone would dislike it at some point." And I'm all, I've never, and so we thought you hated the idea, because I gave a guy a Karak crate a couple weeks ago, and his email just had 3 letters. It was just WTF. And I was like, oh no, I've hit, you know, because I take some risks with what I do. And this one was a torture chamber with G.I. Joe characters I had built. And I was like, I have this feeling he's going to be like, this is the worst thing ever. And instead, it's like he sent me a picture of like his Christmas tree with this underneath it. And he's like, he's got his hand around it and he's pushing away his wife like he likes the present more. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because I'm always waiting for that person who I give them one and they're like, you know, I'm offended or whatever. And I'll be all, sorry. Because I gave the one guy the G.I. Joe dude and the wheelchair I made out of popsicle sticks with his lower legs burned off. And I was like, I was wondering if the person would think I was just completely insane or what. But you guys have all been awesome. I want to thank you. And I want to thank Matty and Lone for inviting me onto theirs. These kind of podcasts absolutely are what keep me going, and it's been a blast having you guys on here. We're not at 100. Matty and them, we're like at fucking
139, something like that.
I reckon we lost count too, so it's probably like 150. We just kept skipping numbers.
and I gotta say, man, they are militant about it. Like if one person's there, they'll probably still do a podcast. We're like, okay, yeah, this didn't work, blah, blah, blah. But Matty's like, motherfuckers, somebody is going to record something. So, yeah, it's been a blast. And I just want to thank all you guys. It's what makes jumping into games so enjoyable. And I'm really happy to have just now met Ralph from Skill Up and stuff like that, and hope to continue to communicate, not collaborate, but talk about different things with him for video games. So moving on from there, thanks to all the patrons. And let's jump into it. The first thing I want to talk about, this is a question that's been bothering me and I didn't even know what the question was until a couple days ago. But what is it that stops people who haven't jumped into VR? What really stops them? Like, is it the games? Is it the FPS? Is it sickness? Is it motion sickness? Is it isolation? And the reason I want to ask is because I think sometimes the companies themselves don't know. Because everybody's different, and they're not going to know exactly what stops people. But I'm always interested to know, because, for example, Matty's played, and we're going to start with him. Matty's played PSVR games aplenty,
Mm-hmm.
and hasn't made that jump. So what is it for you, Matty?
For me, I never actually considered isolation. That's an interesting point. I don't know if that's been talked about a lot, but that could definitely, for people with like anxiety or depression, I think that could factor a big part into that. But for me, it's I've tested a PSVR, I've tested the Oculus Rift, I've tested a ton of VR. The reason I've never made a jump is because I've never seen that game that screams to me like, this is why you need VR. It's not, usually it's always the first person shooter and you can just wave around the gun and that type of stuff. Right. I don't know how to word it without sounding, because I like Nintendo stuff, but yet I'll say it feels a little gimmicky to an extent, the games. I haven't seen that VR experience really that's sold me on it, though. So that's kind of where I sit. It's also a matter of you need 40,000 accessories. It is getting more simplistic because, Karak, you follow it closely, and you're really my primary source of information on VR. So when you tell me, like, you got the wireless Samsung one, I think it was now.
The
that type
wireless
of stuff.
5, yeah.
Yeah, that type of stuff piques my curiosity because I'm like, okay, that's a step forward to making it where I just slap on a pair of goggles and I'm good to go. But when it comes to VR right now, it's just there's a lot of pieces to it. I feel like they're still figuring things out. And it's a piece of technology I just want to give time because I think it can be great. I have no doubt of that. It's just right now with the games and where the technology stands, I think a couple of years down the line is when it's going to really take off.
Excellent. What about you, Lone?
Man, here in Australia, and I'm sure SkillUp can attest to this, but...
Cost.
Yeah, it's so expensive. It is ridiculously expensive here. And yeah, it's currency conversions. It's the Australia tax is what we refer to it as. But it's about $1,000. If you want to buy a HTC Vive, it's about $1,000 Australian. And cost of living, all that kind of stuff factors into it, and the slightly higher salaries in Australia. But still, it's $1,000 to play a very limited pool of games, and you also need the PC to back it up. So the true cost is actually much higher, plus the money you spend on the games. And you've got a bunch of Australians that are here thinking, look, I've just got a plethora of games in my Steam library. What is the need for me to spend all this money on VR, especially like with what Matty said? Where's the killer title? I haven't found it yet. Recently, I played Elder Scrolls on PSVR, which, albeit it's not like the best graphics or anything like that. It's pretty low res, especially when you come from a PC gaming background. But I couldn't see myself putting over 100 hours into Skyrim in VR. It just sounds like such a daunting task. Like it's very cool. It's very cool to pull back your bow and arrow and shoot someone and stuff. And it's very cool to swim underwater. But again, it's like, all right, that's a one-off experience. I can't imagine every single night coming home wanting to put this massive VR headset on my head and just play for hours on end. It sounds very, I guess, overwhelming and draining. And I would just prefer traditionally to sit in front of a screen and play games.
Does it, and that totally makes sense. Does it sort of equate to like throwing the football in the backyard with friends versus suiting up and going and playing a game?
Absolutely.
Like, is that what you're saying?
It's like, okay. I would love to go into the field and run around and kick a soccer ball.
Right.
Or I could put on my shin pads and my boots and my full setup gear. And it's just like, I don't want to have to go through all of that. And I think part of the reason why, and I always bring up the Switch in these kinds of conversations, but I think the reason why the Switch has become so popular is because it's so easy and accessible to play. You can literally pull it out of your bag and play. But with VR, you have to like step into a Tron outfit to play a game. It's very, cumbersome, and it's just something, until the price goes down, I don't think I can really get into personally.
That makes sense. Reg, we have multiple headsets, but what? Let's talk about the one thing that bothers you the most, since you
I guess to sum it up, it would be it's not worth the effort with the most games, because you have to maybe calibrate the room again because something like moved an inch, one of the lighthouses or whatever. There you have the very uncomfortable cable hanging off the headset unless you got a wireless add-on. You have a graphical downgrade in the games. Most of the games are don't have a reason to be VR. Many of them are just like, hey, look, it's the same thing you could play on a monitor, but it's in VR. Yeah, okay, good for you. And there's really very few experiences that I think are getting enhanced by VR. Like Resident Evil would be still, I think, the shining example.
Yeah.
Where the being in the game really enhances the gameplay, the feeling at least. Yeah. But apart from that, there's so many games, especially also on PSVR, where it's like a diorama game where you're looking down from the clouds and stuff below. But it got no reason to be VR only. It could just as well be on a 2D screen.
Right. That makes sense. What about you, Silver?
Yeah, it's a number of factors for me. Like there's a physical factor in that I have bad knees, so standing up for longer periods of time is a no-go for me, generally speaking. Price is another factor. Like cost is similar here to what it is in Australia. So that's a bit prohibitive as well. And I guess for me, VR isn't really all that attractive as a gaming platform for some of the reasons that were already outlined, and that I prefer to sit down with a gamepad in my hand or a mouse and keyboard and play in front of a screen. Whereas VR is more appealing to me for its other features like traveling, virtual tourism, and stuff like that, movies and so on. Which
education too.
Precisely, which are potential reasons for me to get VR, but it's just at the moment prohibitively expensive for me. And there's the physical element of standing.
I mean, a lot of conversations that I've had about VR, AR, MR, I mean, the real potential is in the non-entertainment space. So you're talking your defense, aerospace, health, education, and that might be where the real money lies. I mean, there are so many examples of policemen in Australia using VR to practice using tasers, or surgeons using VR to practice, instead of reading a textbook, for instance. And I think those are the real applications, and especially AR as well. I hear good things about that. But just in the gaming space, it's probably more limited.
Right. What about you, Ralph?
There's also there's also a limit of space. Like I have a pretty small room, so I don't really have the space for VR either.
Yeah, that makes sense. Ralph, what about you?
I just feel like very few developers are really trying to develop games that are specifically for the VR platform in the right way. Like porting Doom and Skyrim to VR is just like the ultimate waste of time. Like it's just such a silly waste of a developer's time, because they could be developing. Recently I went, because I was at E3 this year, and I played a game called The Inpatient, which is a PSVR game that's coming out next year. And that was a game you could tell was being made from the ground up for VR. And it was a horror game. You were kind of like a psychiatric patient trapped in an institution, but obviously you weren't, psychotic. It was all just a big thing, whatever. But it was just brilliant the way that it worked, because it didn't ask you to move around too much. It really had a sense of, it created shapes and objects and people and details that really asked you to get close to explore them, rather than just, okay, that's what they are. The whole thing was constructed from the ground up around that. And I could immediately see this was good. This was something. It was the very first VR experience I've had. And I've had many of them that I was like, okay, these guys are really getting it. So I just feel like the market, like the technology, sure, there's all those problems, but I think the real issue is that the developers themselves are not actually trying to make VR games yet. They're trying to make other games and squeeze them into VR. Almost no developers at this point are making real VR games.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, Resident Evil, I would say, I think they were, whether it be a year or two in, but they're still one of the best examples. Fallout 4 is a phenomenal game in VR, but it is, I mean, even though I have the Odyssey, which is like 2 wires, it is a little bit like, oh god, here we go. It's like, all right.
Is Fallout 4 better because of you playing in VR?
Yes.
Why?
You get to pull a Pip-Boy up to your face. That's how you manage the inventory.
Yeah.
You don't even have to press a button.
It turned me from being like, to holy shit. I mean, for example, right at the starting, you meet, I can't even remember their names, the NPCs, they walk back to Sanctuary. And I've never followed them back. I've never, like you say, you go into that first space, you get that, you kill a couple people, and then they're like, okay, we'll meet you back in Sanctuary. And usually I run off and then I come back later. This time I was so enamored because it took, and here's the problem. It's exactly what a lot of you guys said, which was setup. It took me a lot of I hacks to get this right. But once I did it and the scale was correct, it was awesome. But the way it was when I first turned it on was not. So when I first turned it on, people were really small looking and the scale was off, and that's their generic setting. And the same thing happened with LA Noire. To get LA Noire to work right, I had to bend down and then start it. Because LA Noire, of all things, and no one knows why they do this, they calculate the entire world and its size based on your height. Well, the problem is that makes people look like they have banana hands. And so you're just like, if you're tall like me, they're like, raw. And the first time you see Phelps' hands, I'm not lying, they look that big. Like it was nightmarish. It was nightmarish. I was just like, I'll never jack off again. So I think when you have all these I hacks, once you get it all set up, Fallout 4 is fucking fantastic. Like, I listen to people, I talk to them. I'm so engrossed in that. But it's still not just a VR game. Like you said, Ralph, it's just not for VR. It's like what they added. And there's problems with it. They should have never shipped it like it is. There's things that don't work. For example, scopes. Scopes on guns are supposed to improve fucking visibility, not make it go away. And it's a bug. And so you hold it up and it just turns gray. You can't see anything.
Right.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. So, but yeah, I just wanted to hear what you guys thought. We get a lot of people, especially because people know that I've been impressed with various different games. Vanishing Realms, Elite, and a couple others. Reg has had one. Got a couple Discord people who have them. And with the price dropping, I just wanted to sort of see what people thought, like what they might jump into, especially now. What's the Vive now, Reg? It dropped another 100, right? It's like
I just looked up how much it costs here right now, and it's like $830.
You live in hell, man.
Yeah,
that's so crazy how expensive it is. But in the US, the only place that matters, they did drop the price. So I'm just joking. Moving on from there, I want to talk about the importance of good game communities. We'll go back around this time. So this time we're going to start with Ralph. When it comes to game communities, it seems like I talk about them a lot in Discord. Like we'll start talking about something and then we'll talk about a game, and somehow it always goes to their community. The discussion sort of always, it becomes less about the game after a while, and it's like, yeah, and these modders did this, or remember this funny video somebody made. Has the importance of community and like a really good community, has it ever changed your thoughts on a game or made you like more interested in a title or less so? Skill?
Yeah, well, I think I've got two examples that have been very formative for me. Like the first is I covered The Division in my first year on YouTube, and that has like a famously toxic community. And one of the fascinating things about that community is it emerged because of the game design. The game actually thrust you into this dark zone where you were really encouraged to try. If you wanted to just farm gear, you were basically going up against a whole bunch of other people who really just wanted to PvP. So the game was putting you into an environment where people had different objectives, and as a result of that, everybody felt like they weren't getting a good experience. People who just wanted to get on with their thing felt like they were being griefed. People who wanted to PvP felt like, well, I'm getting shitty PvP because I'm just stomping people. And that really manifested in one of the most toxic and divided communities we've seen to date, really. And certainly in that first 18 months of The Division. It's only recently sort of come good, interestingly enough. But that community has always been very, very, very divided. And the other side of the coin is something like Warframe, where, again, the game design is everyone's on the same team. There's a PvP mode that almost no one plays. It's a PvE-focused game. And the development team and the community as a whole has just created this space where everyone is so welcomed. So much support is provided to everyone. The minute anyone puts up their hand and says, I'm new, everyone sort of just embraces them in a way that I've seen in very few other games. So that for me really stands out as a big example, and it's a pretty known thing as well. Like if you speak to the Warframe community, they know how good they are. Like they're very proud of themselves in terms of that inclusiveness of that community. So yeah, I think those community can definitely have a big impact upon how much we enjoy a game. It certainly has for me, but I'm always interested in the degree to which the game design itself has informed that, because it's not always just amorphous things like a YouTuber, streamers, some event they have, or mods, or any of that sort of stuff. Some of it is very deeply ingrained into the core DNA of the game.
Do you, when you're, now that the Division's getting better, do you find yourself more open to like posting a question or jumping in or discussing it because the community is a little better?
I've never been someone that's been shy from doing that. I'm overall looking at the nature or the tenor of the discussions that are taking place, where everyone before was hating each other. Everyone before was fighting. It was either you were a PvE or a PvP, and never the two shall meet kind of thing, But now it's a case of, well, the game has been redesigned where we can all get what we want without having to piss each other off. And so now the conversation is a lot more, cooperative, conducive, collaborative. Everyone's getting along now because they're having fun in the game as opposed to being pissed off by it.
Yeah, that's true. What about you, Silver?
Yeah, I think especially with multiplayer games, they live and die by their communities. Like especially MMOs. I mean, you take a game like World of Warcraft, the community is basically what's kept that game alive for going on over 10 years now. So yeah, but I mean, it also works the other way around, because they can also sort of ruin the experience, because to me, like one of the most toxic communities I've encountered sadly in gaming is the Warhammer community or Total War community, which is just like the entitlement of that community is crazy. I mean, I still see every single time Creative Assembly announces new content, like there's just comment after comment after comment that's outraged that they dare charge for any sort of content at all. And it's mystifying to me, because there's so much value to their content. Like they release an expansion pack that's maybe like 40 hours of gameplay or something, but all new models, new animations, whole new faction, but no, how dare they charge money for it?
Why would people want that for free?
Yeah.
I mean, people want everything for free, but sounds like, some real entitlement there.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, Warframe is a really good example of a cooperative community that sort of comes together and help each other out, and helps to enjoy the game and sort of bring new players into the fold so that they can replace other players who leave, and so that there's always an active community going.
What about you, Reg?
Well, I think the basic set is that the more PvP heavy it gets, the more toxic it gets. Because the most toxic communities in my mind are like League of Legends, which is very toxic and very PvP heavy. While one of the best ones in my mind is like Guild Wars 2, for example, which basically has really no PvP. I mean, there is a PvP mode, but whatever. And I don't know if there's actually I don't know any game that's PvP heavy and has a good community, but that might also be because I usually go into these games with friends and don't really interact with the randoms.
I guess that's my question, though. Are you doing that as a response because of at past toxic, or are you just doing it because?
No, that definitely.
Okay, gotcha.
Because if I know I join them random and all I get is like people cursing and blaming each other all the time, then no, thanks.
Yeah,
right. I'll just go on to another game.
Yeah. What about you, Lone?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same mind. Whenever I do play multiplayer online, even PvP games, I just tend to stick with friends. So I don't actually experience some of the toxicity that I know that goes on in a lot of these communities. But even just broader, I mean, single-player games can build up really, really cool communities. And I want to bring up an example of a game's how a community can really kind of, I don't know, affect a game's popularity and how much people talk about it. So Matty, you would know this fully well, but with Fallout 4, I mean, it wasn't the game, whether you liked it or not, it wasn't the game that I think a lot of people were expecting. And that just kind of killed all momentum with that game's community moving forward. I mean, there was so much activity with Fallout New Vegas modding and people just talking about the game and getting really excited. And then after Fallout 4, after a few months, it just died off. You know, Fallout YouTubers were getting less views. There wasn't enough as much modding activity on Nexus. It was just such a disenfranchising thing. And it wasn't because, like, I enjoyed Fallout 4, but it just wasn't the movie that people were looking, sorry, the game that people were looking for. I was thinking of Star Wars for a sec. We can talk about that. But
also
yeah,
true.
Yeah, also
everybody
true.
dies.
Yeah,
Just joking.
but again, whether you liked it or not, a lot of people weren't. When they played that game, they thought, "Oh, it's not the game that I was looking for." So people are less likely to watch videos about it. People are less likely to go into the modding scene, and it just kind of, I guess, flattened the community. And I don't think it's ever recovered. And I think when you look at, you know, Skyrim modding or even still New Vegas modding to this day, I think those communities are a bit more active than the Fallout 4 community. So that's kind of an opposite example.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. What about you, Matty?
On the multiplayer side of things, I used to really like Overwatch's community during like its first year. I really didn't have an issue with it. I thought it was kind of a warm community because like the voice actors that interact with fans, you could hop in a random match and be fine, but just I don't know what happened that caused it to all of a sudden just go south. I think part of it was competitive, and I think Blizzard made a lot of changes that people just gradually didn't like more and more, and so I think things just started to turn negative real fast. Call of Duty is one that hasn't changed one bit. I still hop on to play game battles just for fun with my friends. And there's still, like, you know, if it's a close game, there's no respect. It's like, you know, people are still teabagging, shooting the dead bodies while you're defusing the bomb, that type of bullshit. So, you know, that's the type of stuff that that's why I grew up with friends, because I just don't want to bother with those types of communities. I'll still play the game. But on the single player side of things, since Lona mentioned Fallout, I think that's a good example, but I'll mention something different for discussion purposes, like Star Wars. There's been so many, and this is with any series I've noticed, just when there's so many different hands and takes on a series, it gets toxic real fast. And Star Wars is gradually turning that way, where we're seeing what's happening with Battlefront 2. We're seeing what's happening with the movies, where we went from like J.J. Abrams to Ryan, I think Johnson was his name. You know, there's so many, and then you got the prequels. Some people like them, some people despise them. Some people like the original, some people hate the original, some people like the new movie, some people think it's a joke. And some people blame Disney. Some people think Disney's doing the right thing. And what I'm saying is there's so much division because there's been so many takes. Same thing goes for Fallout, any other game or entertainment series really that's had a lot of hands on it. And that's what causes the most division and in turn toxicity. I've noticed it becomes hard to want to interact with it. I mean, in my video today, I was just looking and I noticed there was a pretty solid amount of dislikes. I'm like, what happened here? I was like, okay, let's see. And I go to the comments and people just want the game to die, Battlefront 2. They're like, don't talk about it. They're like, just let it die. And I'm like, interesting, you know, because I just talk about what I find interesting on the channel. Like, no one's going to tell me what to talk about on my channel. Sorry. Right. But it's more so like that's the length it's gotten to, that people are like, how dare you cover that there is news about this game? It's like, no, I'm very interested in how Battlefront 2 is going to turn out. Like, I'm going to talk about it. Yeah. And I think that's a turn for the negative, where I used to find Star Wars a little bit more positive.
That's different. There's very specific reasons why people do that, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like I'm going back, though, to my core point, which is regardless of what series it is, it's always when you see a lot of hands touching the franchise, people like different takes and in turn don't like other ones. And that's when you get the like, well, look at New Vegas versus Fallout 3. You know, this is the best one. No, this is the best one. New Vegas is the best. It's like I like Fallout 3 the most, objectively speaking. I think New Vegas is the best, but you know, I'm not saying I have the ideal way of thinking, but like everyone doesn't think that way. Yeah. You know, some people like the originals and stuff, but
I think Lone touched on a really interesting point, which is basically what I notice a lot, which is the snowball effect. In that the ball sort of gets rolling, for instance, a ball of toxicity, and so then other people start jumping on, and sort of a bandwagon effect. and then the snowball just starts rolling, and it gets bigger and bigger, and it becomes this sort of groupthink, hive mind sort of thing where everyone just hates and hates and hates, and there isn't any critical thinking involved in it. It's just sort of hate for the sake of hating,
right?
Which is what I think, to an extent, what we see with Battlefront.
I've been listening to a lot of videos about why, or people at least explaining why they think Marvel movies, for instance, are doing so well compared to DC and a lot of other big kind of cinematic universes. And one of the main reasons is because they've had one producer right at the top, Kevin Feige, that oversaw every single movie in that 10-year plus series or franchise rather, and you don't have that too much. That's kind of a rarity. So when you have one person that's kind of sculpting each individual's director's movies, so there's some sort of continuity. It results in a community where people are like excited for the next movies. They know like the overall vision isn't going to be tampered with. There's going to be continuity and consistency and all that. And that's a problem with a lot of games, is because you might have like some exec staff that oversee it, but not to that extent. And you have so much turnover in a developer studio. Like you might have, I don't know, 20 to 30%, maybe 50% if you're lucky, of the original people that worked on the game that are working on the series. Like with New Vegas, for instance, I think you have like 10 to 20% of the staff at Obsidian that worked on New Vegas that are still there. In comparison to the size of the studio as a whole, it's so hard to maintain that continuity and to keep satisfying fans when new developers come in and they want to kind of express themselves. And BioWare, like there's tons of examples. And I think in terms of like, I guess audiovisual work in general, Marvel and Kevin Feige are a really great example of just keeping consistency.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything to add to that? No? I will say that personally, I think that it probably is that kind of stuff where multiple different hands get on it. But I also think that it can be a joke and it can get totally out of hand. Yeah. One of the things that, like, we'll be in my Discord even, and somebody will say something and we'll joke, and then the joke is negative, but that becomes a joke. And then people come in and they truly feel negative. And even in a small community of like less than 200 people, I've been in the Discord and been like, what the fuck? Like, how did this go so negative? What's happening? And it'll be Reg doesn't like towers or something. Like that'll start. Or Karak doesn't like this. Or Silver doesn't like this. And then people jump in. And it dawns on me when I go to NeoGAF or Resetera or any of the big forums, the same thing can happen. Somebody will jump into like a BioWare, because that's like Maddie and it's our favorite companies. They'll jump in and they'll be like Andromeda. They'll just say the word. And you were talking about Mass Effect 1. And they say Andromeda. And you're like, yeah, you're right. And your conversation's ruined. It's like you're like, the people are too small and none of the quests worked. And, and it becomes this.
The hands are too large.
The hands are too large. Yeah. There was some fucked up stuff about Andromeda. But yeah, it's pretty sad to see like communities get sort of infected by that. But we still have great ones. Like I always say, Unreal 1999 still has modders. It seems like modders keep things going, and people still have, you guys mentioned Fallout 4, but people still are like constantly saying, we're going to move this old content into Fallout 4 with the mods. They want to add stuff, whether that'll happen or not. But that's one cool thing, is like where somebody says, Red Dead, matter of fact, didn't Red Dead's landscape get injected into GTA recently? Just a couple months ago, I think they found a way to inject the landscape in. So it's like,
didn't Rockstar like stop that or something?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh,
Jesus. Yeah,
did they?
Shut that down.
I should have known, right? Of course, because they can't charge a shark card for the fucking thing. So, GTA can, man, whatever. Anyway, so moving on from there, I do want to. We'll skip we'll skip a couple of my things because we have so many people here. But Silver wanted to discuss, and I think we all should, because I think most of us have played this, Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus, and how much Silver loved it. So we'll start with Silver, and then we'll jump to Maddie and go back around. So Silver, what are your thoughts on Wolfenstein 2, and why did you love it so much?
Yeah, so I finished it last night. I played through it on Death Incarnate. It was decent challenge, pretty fun gameplay. Shooting was fun. Stealth was okay. AI is pretty broken in places. But what sort of ruined the experience for me was what really has been my main problem with machine games, Wolfenstein iterations. Or it wasn't really there with Old Blood, but it was there with the New Order, which is the mismatch of tone, where they'll go like there'll be a scene of like Holocaust like seriousness, and then there's going to be a joke of frat boy level humor, like a fart joke or whatever, and that tonal shift never feels right for me. It just immediately pulls me out of the game. And it kills any emotional resonance. There's also a plot twist about midway in the game that really sort of ruined things for me. Where at that point, the game just lost any emotional significance at all for me. And I had trouble taking it seriously after that, even though it seemed to want me to in places. So yeah, that trouble it has in striking the right tone between seriousness and comedy just is even worse for me. Was even worse for me here than it was in New Order, and it just never felt appropriate or right. I only laughed in the game once, and I don't think the game meant for me to laugh at that particular point.
It is weird because I think you just described why a lot of people like it. I mean, I literally think you did. Like, yeah. I loved the awkwardness, but I absolutely see where you're coming from. Like, I
also sort of hate that all of the Nazis are just cartoon characters. They have no depth whatsoever to them. I find it pretty dull and boring. It would be interesting if they actually had a Nazi character who had some actual depth to them that was interesting. Because to me, what's scary about Nazism isn't the fact that they're evil. It's the fact that they're people.
Yeah, right.
The fact that I could have potentially, under those circumstances, been a Nazi, that I could have been potentially an Adolf Eichmann. That's very scary to me. So the fact that the game sort of plays them off as these cartoon villains, because that's not necessarily a problem, because Indiana Jones does the same. Mm-hmm. But Indiana Jones doesn't ask you to take them seriously or the extent of their atrocities seriously to the extent that Wolfenstein does. And yeah, that because of that, it loses its way from me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What about you, Matty? Like, what did you like, dislike? Do you agree? Do you think Silver's dumb?
I would never say that. See, it's funny. You say, like, yeah, that's basically what he did was describe why I enjoyed the game. I like that awkward humor because I find that a little more humanizing. I feel like I relate to it more because in a doom and gloom situation, I try to, all right, let's look for some positives here. And I imagine when you're in a situation like they are resisting such Nazi oppression that you're probably going to want to have a laugh or two. I don't want to spoil too many scenes, but there's like towards the end of the game scene that while it felt maybe a little out of place, it kind of made sense if I were there. Mm-hmm. I thought the gameplay was relatively exciting. I thought Frau Engel, I think her name was, I thought she was a creepy take on a Nazi. Not scary, but, the way she sold her role where, she was almost that standard Nazi leader we've seen in various movies and games. But, when she got up close and personal with BJ, it was like a more personal interaction between them that I felt was very different from what we've seen before. Only issue I really took away from the game was I guess its length. I do wish it was a little bit longer because I kind of breezed through it despite playing it in very small chunks. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a good challenge. I'm trying to think if there was anything I really didn't like. The plot twist, I think I know what you're referring to. I can see, now that you bring that up, I can see how that would actually be a little more emotionally disengaging. I had not considered that perspective if I'm imagining it properly. Because I thought it was more like a holy crap moment. Like I stood up and grabbed my head, but it's interesting when you bring up your point that it could be taken another way. For me, it's what really reeled me in, but mm-hmm. I totally see where you're coming from on your side of the fence. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. But this is a game that I kind of thought when I was playing it, I was like, this is going to be universally well accepted. And it seems like it's a real 50-50. A lot of people, you love it or you hate it. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it. And I was surprised. I
was
really surprised.
Yeah, which I think even prior, you and I were talking about going, oh, yeah, everybody will like it. And I think a lot of critics did, but then you get some, like I think TB hated it, if I remember right. So what about you, Lone?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I thought it did pretty much everything better than the first game. I know exactly the twist that you're talking about. We won't mention it, but if you go back through my Twitch broadcasts, my reaction was just like, what the fuck is going on? This is not real. Like it was so absurd that it was funny to me.
I just want to make sure, has everybody beat this game? Everybody's beat it? Yeah. I'm assuming. Was it...
Can you just say it had to do with someone's head, right?
There we go. Yeah, that's okay. Great. All right, continue.
Yeah. So, look, that happened, and I thought, no, this is batshit crazy. But I think that's exactly why I loved it, because once you got back into the game after that, you thought, now I'm ready to really fuck shit up. It was this weird scenario. But the one thing that I will say with Wolfenstein II is that I thought the voice acting and the characters and the cutscene in this game were phenomenal. They were absolutely brilliant. And, in between those cutscenes with the action, it was as crazy as ever. And I think we all expected it to be. What I didn't expect is how good the cutscenes were. I mean, that one where you have to find these resistance fighters and you're kind of having a drink with each other as the sniper is shooting Nazis and your building is being attacked. That scene is probably one of the greatest scenes that I've ever experienced, because they're just getting drunk talking about what to do about this Nazi problem, and the music is building in the background. He's playing, I think he's playing a trumpet or something like saxophone.
Clarinet.
Yeah, it was one of them. Anyway, but it was so brilliant, and there's a ton of moments like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed that game.
Very cool. What about you, Reg?
Overall, I really like the game. Like the others already mentioned, like the cutscenes are very well done. I definitely was impressed by Frau Engel. The character was just, I think, phenomenal. Especially in the beginning, the interaction with her daughter. One of my favorite scenes. Then later on, when you're in a bunker, it was just like one random character, but that was one of the situations where I had to laugh out, where the dudes were talking to each other, and one of them was like, "Yeah, violence is never the answer." Like you're in an underground Nazi bunker.
It was awesome.
Apart from that, the major negative I would say is that the game doesn't know from its gameplay what it wants to be. Mm-hmm. Like it wants to be a crazy shooter, but it also wants to be a stealth game. Mm-hmm. And at least on normal difficulty, that doesn't really work.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Death Incarnate, you sort of had to play it as a stealth game, or I did.
Yeah. And apart from that, I see it differently. I see it, I think, exactly opposite from Silver. For me, it's going in, it was like a crazy fun game. That also had some more calm, serious moments.
Right. Well, you and we always disagree with Silver. That's our thing. That's whenever he starts typing in Discord, what do I say? I'm like, oh God, here we go. Silver's going to argue with whatever I just posted. I'll be like, pizza's good, and Silver will be all, actually.
I have a friend who doesn't like pizza, and it pisses me off.
Oh yeah.
Pineapple is an atrocity.
He should be punched in the face. What about you, Ralph? Napoli. Have you got a chance to play it, and what do you think?
Yeah, I played it. I finished it. I mean, I think most of the points I would agree with, in the sense that, I find it so surprising that people don't like this game. I just do. Like I just think there's so much in it that it's hard to really dislike this game. I mean, the cutscenes in particular, I feel were, as Lone was saying before, just some of the best I think I've ever seen in a game. That writing, that pacing, that the voice acting, all of it was just so pitch perfect. So yeah, I mean, there's not really much to add. All I'll say is that I absolutely loved it, and I guess it's just horses for courses. I guess it's one of those games where it's very much about personal taste.
When you were playing it, were you doing it for a review, or were you doing it for your own?
I was doing it just for my own pleasure, and then I ended up reviewing it, but I didn't review it as a video game. I actually reviewed it as a movie because I feel like as a video game, I was a bit like meh, whatever. I didn't care about shooting stuff. It didn't really matter to me because what I felt was that the story and the cutscenes were so overwhelmingly good that the best way to appreciate this game is to appreciate it as a film and just get the gameplay out the way as quickly as you can. Just play through it on normal difficulty and just get through it, and then get to the cutscenes, and then just put those together, and then you've got yourself an amazing experience. It's like a 3.5 hour interactive, or 3.5 hour movie that has interactive segments between them that kind of disrupt the fun, in my view. So,
you know, it's funny he mentions it that way because I actually see where Silver's coming from. And I'm not saying these guys didn't, but certainly I can see where humor sometimes doesn't work for somebody. You know, Talladega Nights is funny to one person, it's not funny to somebody else. Star Wars is bad to everybody. But let's talk about one. No, I can't wait until I see what everybody posts about. So, but I get where Silver's coming from because, and I think TB brought it up a little bit, that if you don't buy into the disconnect, which is the same for all B movies, and I love B movies, but if you don't buy into the disconnect that's going on, it's not going to actually be that enjoyable to you because it will feel like two different things occurring. The mood will be different. It'll never really sort of sit down and make sense to you. But additionally, I'm just going to say, I really do believe Silver did a disservice to himself, and I do the same thing all the time. Some games I do not think are balanced correctly for the hardest difficulty.
No way.
No,
and
that's true.
I don't think they failed. I will not go that far, but I'll go as far as what Silver's saying, which is, and that's a thing. If you're repeating the same fucking alleyway 500 times because you're on the hardest difficulty or whatever, and the humor, at some point you want a different payoff. And I will admit that when a game is super hard, I don't know if I want a humorous payoff. I know that sounds weird, but I don't know if I would feel as paid off if I was just crunching and forced into the stealth versus, because I think on a game, even on hard, should still allow for both kinds of gameplay. I don't think it should force you to be stealthy. I think it should reward you for whichever way you play. And instead, a lot of developers penalize instead of really purchase a gamer's investment by giving more stuff. They're like, no, we're going to penalize you on the hardest. You have to be silent, and I would rather choose to do that. You know, I would rather choose to play Dishonored and not kill anybody or whatever. And so I can see where Silver's coming from.
The stealth mechanics in that game was so underbaked as well. I couldn't imagine anything worse than playing that as a stealth game, right? It just,
so if you're forced to do it.
If the hardest difficulty makes you do that, then that is absolutely the worst way to play that game.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily, but the alternative is that you basically hunker down in a corner. Where you basically funnel all the enemies down a hallway, so they all come rushing at you down the same hallway.
They come one at a time anyway.
So what you're saying is you do what you would do in real life. Because let's be honest, if we were fucking facing off against a bunch of enemies, I wouldn't run out there and go like, I'm going to sneak up behind this guy. I would sit there a mile away and plink them. Just bang, bang, bang. So in a weird way, once you start jumping into the gameplay, that's when things can feel really odd.
Also,
so, go ahead.
My objection wasn't so much that there can't be comedy in the game.
I know.
It's just that, the tone of it. Like Roberto Benigni has that film Life is Beautiful, which sort of mixes the Holocaust with humor, which hit the right tone for me. But this game just didn't. And part of it is the fact that the characters felt shallow. Like there aren't really any characters with more than 2 dimensions. Or very many of them, anyway. And I didn't really find them interesting, which was the fundamental problem for me.
There's 2 things that won me over in this. First, the cutscene where the dude's punching himself in the face.
Fergus is a good
There's
character,
rarely a time where I bust, like I physically can't control the laughter, because it catches me surprise. That did. And then the later scene, which you guys heard me talk about in the Discord, but the actor who did the voice acting for BJ's family member. And sorry, my throat is bad. And so when they were in the house and the voice acting between those two, and honestly, he was saying, what these characters were saying to each other was harsh as fuck. And it was one of those family moments where you're like, I don't want to be here. I feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, you're like, I just want to go to the other room.
Yeah. Can I hide out in there?
It's like
and
when you go
just,
to a friend's house and their parents
and their
are
dad
arguing.
yells at them. Oh yeah, and you're all. Can we just go?
You can feel the tension.
Yeah,
Can we just go play Mario Kart?
It's cooked. It's only been in the oven for 15 minutes. We'll just go outside. It's fine. Yeah, there was some crazy stuff. But I agree, Silver. Like I don't think they did get too deep. I think that the main chick though, the one who did the main villain, she was fucking fantastic.
She was insane.
And
I think the problem is just that I've seen too many like over the top one-dimensional Nazi villains that
I agree. You have
that it doesn't impress me.
I think also part of the excitement of any character in Wolfenstein is before Machine Games took the reins, Wolfenstein was not known for its story at all. It was just kill Nazis. And it's like the fact that they actually added something worth caring about. I think people, understandably so, got maybe a little carried away. We're like, these are the best characters. I think it was the best acted game of 2017 easily, but they certainly weren't the deepest characters, but I think they were deep enough to get the story moving and stuff. Yeah. But like I said, I think because it was Wolfenstein, some people just got carried away with it.
What I really liked as well was, I can't remember her name, but Frau Engel's daughter. Just that. I don't want to. It's so hard to talk about spoilers, but
I know
just
it is.
the way as she progresses through the game, and she's constantly berated because of her background as a Nazi, and the way she just lashes out and just says, "Don't call me a fucking Nazi." It was just brilliantly well done because she had that conflict inside of her, obviously as a child growing up with this fucking insane mother. And then the way that she just said, "No, this is not me." I thought that was brilliantly done. And I also wanted to mention on crazy notes, one of the last scenes where her name's Anya, right? BJ's.
Yeah.
When she comes in at the end and just starts shooting
awesome.
Nazis. You guys know the scene that I'm talking about.
Dude, yeah.
I pissed
it was
myself
disturbing
laughing.
To me, though.
It was disturbing.
It was a little disturbing.
It was amazing.
So when you're talking about tone, I was like, oh my God. Like this, it was fine. I laughed my head off, but it probably could have done without that scene. I'll be honest.
Yeah. It was gratuitous in a way that you knew they would do. So like, you know what I mean? So when it started playing, and I remember going, what am I watching? Like, what's happening right now? And well, I'll be honest, the other thing we were talking about, the plot twist, I quite literally had no clue what was going. Like sometimes you'll play a game and you're like, okay, well, I have no clue what's happening right now. Like, how is this happening? And that scene was also that way.
Take the wheel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they literally did jump the shark. But yeah, it's like, yeah, take the wheel because I'm not 100% sure how this is going to end up. And I remember that scene in the person's head and being like, what the fuck? Like, I have no clue. I mean,
how do you think of that? That's what I thought.
And where do we go? Like, where are we going? Where are we going with any of this? And it turned out to be brilliant, but I can certainly see where it would miss for people more so than other games. Because whenever you go for that humor mixed with, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of people don't even want humor with their Nazis. They just want to kill them. Yeah. Right. They don't even think that really works together. So I can see it. I can see it not really paying off. Moving on from there, and the first person to talk about this will be Skill Up. Most memorable gaming moment this year, or one of them at least. Anything. It doesn't have to be reviewing. Doesn't have to be YouTube. Doesn't have to be console. It can be, an Android device. Is there or just anything really, really memorable?
I think for me, it was Nier Automata. I never planned to play that game. I had no interest in that game whatsoever. And I was just like, whatever. Someone said to me, hey, it's really good. You should check it out. I was kind of bored. I was like, whatever, I'll just buy it. And there you go. And then, it's one of those things where it's kind of like, what the actual fuck is this? How is this a thing? And this is only just a random, because like you spend your life in this industry knowing what's coming next. You know the games that are coming, the developers that are making them, you watch the previews, you get ready for it all. But I literally did not know this game existed the day before I purchased it and started playing it. And then it turned out to be, one of the best games I've ever played in my entire life. And it's just so rare that you have those moments in a year when so many people are like, video games suck, 2017 sucked, everything sucks. It's like, yeah, dude, but this is pretty fucking cool. It was a very nice moment for me to have this year, and I'm just really thankful for it, basically.
And do you feel that it was higher due to the surprise?
Yeah, absolutely. Unquestionably. And then I went on to review the game, and a lot of people come back and said, I really loved the game. It was really fantastic. Thank you so much. A lot of other people said, look, I really enjoyed the game, but I think you hyped it up a little bit too much. I think that the review, in terms of how gushing I was in my praise of it, sort of removed the factor that I had when I walked into it, which is I went in completely cold, Now, obviously, there's no way to avoid that. If someone reads a review, they're instantly going to have formed a view before they go into a game. But I wish that everyone could have experienced it the same way I did. Like the way it felt to me like the way I first experienced Metal Gear Solid. I remember getting Metal Gear from the video store, renting it, back in the day when that was the thing you did. And I had no idea what it was. I was just like, well, I'll just play this game. And it just felt exactly the same way, that kind of game that really changes you and forever leaves that mark,
Very cool. What about you, Silver?
Yeah, mine was probably a small point-and-click adventure game called The Lion's Song. The finale of that game really struck a nerve. Like, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but at the end credits, there's a picture that comes up, and I don't consider World War I a spoiler. So it's basically just a picture. It's just a picture of Arlington, just endless gravestones, and it comes up with the casualty numbers for World War I, 40 million people dead, and so on. I knew the numbers; I'd seen them before, but the game had managed through these 4 episodes to contextualize it, so that this was no longer just a number. Mm-hmm. This was 40 million people dead. Right. People like the ones I had just helped play through these various episodes. And that really had an emotional resonance and impact on me that actually brought tears to my eyes as I was playing it. And I thought the game handled that really, really brilliantly. And it's easily one of my favorite games of the year. Damn
it. You sold me on this like 12 times. I keep forgetting to buy it, but each time you talk about it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, this sounds like the best point and click game ever been made.
I don't want to make them. I don't want to talk it up too much, like Skill Up says. But it's just for me, it hit home. Like I've seen other people review it, and they've been sort of less enamored with it than I am. But for me, it hit home.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Reg?
There's been so many games this year. I've been racking my brain. I don't know. So I would go with Tabletop Simulator, actually.
Oh.
Like just the interaction with the people in there. Like especially Munchkin is always a great one. Everyone against Johnny or of the Discord channel. He has a way of getting everyone against on the opposite side. Everyone's teaming up against him organically. So,
but that would be yours, just the interaction in that.
Yes, because it's the one game where I have the most interaction with people on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very cool. What about you, Lone?
I think you know my answer, but
I do.
Undoubtedly Mario and Rabbids. That game, and I've gushed about it on our podcast, but that game, I think it was because it was such a surprise and it came out of nowhere. And it's typically a game I don't play, top-down isometric strategy game like XCOM. And I just fell in love with it. I mean, the animations are awesome. The Rabbids were hilarious. The music was cool. Just the way it was structured. I don't know what it was, but I felt compelled to put 50 hours into it and completely finish it. It was just such an enjoyable game and a perfect fit for the Switch because, I could just sit there and say, all right, there's, World 1-1. I'm just going to do that on the train and finish a couple of them before I get to work in the morning. It's one of those games where I could, given my schedule, I could easily sit there for 20, 30 minutes, play, feel satisfied, and then go to work for the day and then come back into it. It was just so much fun. And like genuinely the gameplay is really, really enjoyable. Experimenting with the different characters, all the special moves that they have, upgrading your skill tree. I highly recommend anyone that just wants a bit of a slower paced game, but it's strategy. And if you like XCOM, you'll adore Mario and Rabbids. It's brilliant.
Yeah. It's a very good answer. I figured that was going to be yours. What about you, Matty?
Just like Ralph. Mine is Nier Automata. That's one that completely caught me off guard. Because I remember, Karak, you told me about it on one of the podcasts you guested on when you first became a host. You were just like, yeah, Nier's good, by the way. I was like, damn it, because there were so many other games coming out at the time. I was like, okay, I gotta somehow get to this. And this was right before Persona 5, which is my most anticipated game entering this year. So it was like one of those points where I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna cluster it all together and pick it up, and I did, and it took priority over Persona, which says a lot. The moment I really fell in love with the game was when I won't spoil too much, but it was during like one of the first big, I guess you could say, kind of boss moments where the enemy's chants starts syncing with the music, and then it all comes together. I was like, this is like an audio visual experience like you just don't get. It had wonderful, impactful end game content that was really nice for people like myself who had played the first Nier and really enjoyed it and thought we're not going to see anything like this ever again. And you get something that's even better. So yeah, I also name it as one of my favorite games of all time. You know, you go into every year, you're like, all right, there's going to be games I like, games I don't like, games that disappoint, but you don't know what's going to, because you can't predict it. You don't know which games are going to be like, this is going to be one of my best or my favorites of all time. And that's what Nier ended up being for me as well. And it just, caught me really off guard. I also, I didn't go in too cold. I watched a couple of gameplay videos. I knew I was interested. I knew it was a platinum game, so I didn't know how much time I'd actually end up putting into it. And I learned now I can put 60 hours into it. So yeah, it's such a wonderful game, and I recommend it to anyone else who likes story, gameplay. If you like video games, fucking play it. Simple as that.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. That I think it's the you cannot continue track. Yeah. Where it's like, or this cannot continue. This can, and I remember
they do it a couple of times.
And then it mixes in with the game, and it's all diegetic and stuff. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? Yeah. That was amazing. I also had a scene that I posted as a GIF to Twitter, and one of the PR guys from one of the companies was like, what fucking game is that? It looks amazing. And it was me fighting right prior to that boss inside of a tunnel that was jet black, and I was using just audio to figure out where the bad guys were, and it was just this eyes. Like. Yeah, so and cool. It was so fucking cool. But for me, it's definite proof that Maddie and Lone don't know what they're talking about, and that's the fact that Prey at the 3/4 of the way through Prey, this classic game that these two fuckers have no clue what they're talking about. Just joking. At the end of, I'm always a big fan of like. I talk about it in Walking the Walks, but the past, present, past, like, does the world feel lived in, whatever. And the fact that halfway, 3/4 through the way through the game, the defenses I set up and the things that I put in place could be turned against me if I chose to go a certain route was fantastic. And I remember turning around and looking at a room and going, oh shit, like what I did in that room is now going to, like, that's going to affect me going back through it. And it's not going to be just A to B, B to A. I think one of the major issues is that depending on what choice you make and how you outfit your character, you may never experience that. Which is, I guess, a positive. A lot of people haven't beat Skyrim, right? I mean, matter of fact, I would say most people. Yeah, there's probably about 7% have beat it. But Prey was just Prey surprised the shit out of me. It continues. I beat it 6 fucking times now. Like, it just, and it's so funny because, like, Maddie and Lone and I, we got together and they were like, yeah, it's pretty good. I might have talked it up maybe too much because they hadn't got a chance. But it's so weird to hear people's differences, because I feel a little like Silver in that way when it comes to like Wolfenstein. Where the opposite, where it's like me going, it worked for me, right? It worked for me perfectly, and Lone and Maddie.
What you were saying earlier about Wolfenstein's difficulty, it's funny because that's kind of what applied to Prey, and it's my fault because of the way I played it. Remember how we found out together by sharing our experiences that for me, I was investing in all these different Typhon powers, thinking, it's just a Typhon power, it's an upgrade. What's it going to do? Turns out the game's infinitely easier if you don't get those upgrades. And so for me, it was kind of like with Wolfenstein, where you die in that same alley a couple of times. It's like, okay, I just want to get through there. Yeah, and then you don't get that payoff. same thing I think we just put into words with my experience of Prey. I die a bunch of times. I'll admit, I first sucked at Prey. Finally got the hang of it, but then there wasn't that payoff, and it was pretty frustrating for me. So,
and I will say, for me, in terms of Prey, the one reason why I didn't like it is, you know, when you're investing in your skills, you either go like down the human route or the Typhon route, you know, for simplicity. And the reason why I did that is because, thinking of my experiences with BioShock, I thought there is no way, if I completely invested in my Typhon skills and alien abilities, that there wasn't some sort of negative consequence in the end. And there had to, unless you invested in all the Typhon skills and made very specific choices, there was only like a very, very small chance that you would have gotten the bad ending. Aside from that, it's very easy to get the easy ending, and I thought I could have had so much more fun playing this game if I just invested in some Typhon skills. But I kind of just said, no, something's bad is going to happen. I don't want to get the bad ending, so I refused to. And I think because of that, my enjoyment of the game was affected. And maybe that was my fault, but I very distinctly remember, I think it was his brother that said, just be very careful with what you invest in. No, it was the voice in his head, or whatever it was, that kind of guiding voice throughout the game. Mm-hmm. But they said, just be careful with what you're investing and how many Typhon abilities you get, because I just thought something bad was going to happen, and that wasn't the case, and that really annoyed me.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about something else that Matt and Lone are wrong about, and that is, I'm just joking. No, I totally get where they're coming from. I took that
so personally, man. That cut deep.
Matty's going to make a rap video. He's going to make a rap. Wiggity whack, Karak smack
down. Send my legion of viewers your way.
Oh yeah, exactly. We're gonna raid his channel. Let's talk for a second about AC Origins, because we do have some. Exactly. So let's start with Matty, since we ended with him. Matty, refresh people on what you thought, because I know you did a review. People can go to his channel and check that out. But refresh people on what you thought overall. What were your experiences about Origin? Or with
you
Origin?
can see the inspiration it tried to take from a lot of open world RPGs. I'd say primarily The Witcher, with the way it tried to handle its exploration and stuff. I found the exploration really engrossing in AC Origins, but as I look back on it, all I remember was that constant loop of either, and this is because of like games like The Witcher, Horizon Zero Dawn that we've seen, where it's always investigate this, raid this camp, and that's all Origins had to offer. Because in those first, like, I'd say 10 hours, AC Origins, I wouldn't say I didn't notice it. I didn't mind it, though. I was enjoying my time with it. Once you get to like the 35, 40 hour mark, you're like, okay, this is so much of the same stuff, despite the world around you being completely fascinating, where one quadrant of the world looks completely different, and it really brings things to life. Like I said, the world is so engaging and engrossing. It makes you want to be there, but it's the activities you're taking part in that are so lackluster, that lack thought, I'd say, compared to the rest of the experience, that for me, especially with a story that was okay, I guess, nothing memorable. I guess the other thing, though, is also AC. I don't know why people will look for a good story in those games, myself included. I'm guilty of it, but it's just they've never, even with Ezio and AC2, like the pinnacle one, that story really wasn't even that good in my opinion. So
right,
that's just my opinion, mind you. But yeah, overall, AC Origins, it was an okay game. It was a good return for Assassin's Creed, but it wasn't like that drastic transformation I think a lot of people were expecting.
Yeah, I think Ezio, the only part they got right was he was a really good dickhead.
Yeah,
and for some reason, it was like we were all, hey man, he's a pretty cool dickhead. But when you look at the story, you're all, yeah, it's not necessarily incredibly well done.
Yeah, they did Ezio right. That's the thing. They did Ezio right. The story though was like, okay, same shit.
Exactly. Lone, what about you?
Look, here's the thing. I completely agree that the side quests are underwhelming and they're very average. And the overall story, so far for me, because I haven't finished it, is just like any kind of run-of-the-mill game. But I will say that's not the most compelling feature for AC Origins for me, because look at Zelda Breath of the Wild, for instance. I didn't touch the side quests because they were also average. The main story is the same story they've been telling for 20 years. And I still absolutely love that game, right? And the thing, and it's very similar with AC Origins. It's a beautiful world you want to explore, And we were joking before the podcast started that I was just hunting hippos and crocodiles and lions for 5 hours because I just wanted to upgrade my material. And the game, the combat has changed compared to previous games, and I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the RPG elements in terms of leveling up and getting new skills and abilities. And that's the most enjoyable bit of AC Origins for me. It's that bit. And I will say that Bayek as a character is more interesting than other Assassin's Creed games that I've played. Like, certainly more interesting than Altair, for instance. Like, he does have character. It's so hard to compete with Ezio because Ezio was that kind of lovable dickhead that, you know, was a womanizer, but you still loved him, right? I mean, it's so hard to get to Ezio's level. But I still do really, really enjoy AC Origins for the exact same reasons why I enjoyed Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's just a beautiful world, fun gameplay, and it's just got a lot of things to offer, and maybe it's not side questing, but there's tons of other stuff there.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes total sense. What about you, Reg? One of the games you beat?
Yeah, true. One of the games I have beat, and I'm
surprised, not to cut you off, but with my interactions with you twice now, I know you hate towers, and the one game you apparently beat is one with towers.
Yes, and not only that, but I also cleared all the towers in this one.
Oh my god!
How did you
Every
do
time he
that?
says that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess because I wasn't forced to do them. So the game didn't tell me you have to do it because otherwise you will suffer.
Absolutely.
Like in a Far Cry, for example. So I had no issue climbing up there. Also because they were like really small and it's like a 15-second thing and you're done. Apart from that, I mean, the world was just so beautiful that it completely engrossed me. And I just wanted to stay in there. I had no issues at all with the camps. Most of them I actually ignored. And focused mostly on the main quest and just did a little bits of side stuff and killing when I had to level up. Apart from that, I mean, it's I think the only Assassin's Creed actually in the whole series where I at the end of it, after I don't know how much time I spent, like 50 hours or so, why I thought that was a good time. Like other games towards the end, I thought finally it's over.
Right.
But not with this one.
It's funny because Reg treats towers a little bit like ex-girlfriends, where he's all, I want to break up. And they're like, me too. And he's all, wait, I don't want to break up. That's sort of the way it is with towers. He's like, I hate towers. And they're all, we have towers and we're all going to enjoy it. And Reg is like, okay, fuck off. I'll do all the towers then. But it is true. They don't require it. And that, I don't care what people say. That matters. It did. Because remember, in Discord, I was probably too much, but I was talking about it. And I was like, oh my God, the towers don't do very much. It's so nice. Like, it was the one thing where, you didn't feel forced. What were you going to say?
They are quick travel spots. I mean, that's the main reason I unlocked them.
Yeah, right.
I was going to say, I mean, I think it was the 6th hour of playing that game that I just realized that the game had towers. Because they do not shove them in your face. Like, I had absolutely no idea, because I was just looking at the map. As soon as you enter a region, it unlocks it for you completely. And I had no idea that this was like another Assassin's Creed game, like AC2 or whatever it is, where you have to go to a town for you to be able to see anything. That's the first thing you had to do, was unlock the tower. AC Origins doesn't work like that. And then when I discovered, there are these little things where you can sync and they're fast travel points and you can increase some of Sennu's abilities. Okay, I can avoid them. I didn't even realize. I thought this game managed that aspect so much better. And you know, in the pre-release material, they were talking about that and saying, look, we're going to encourage you to explore. There's not going to be any fog of war or anything like that. And they're right. They're absolutely right. So I didn't even realize until someone pointed it out to me on the stream.
Yeah. What about you, Silver?
I was a bit mixed on it. Like, I actually felt the side quests were better than in the majority of open world games, because they felt sort of more connected to the world than they do in most open world games. But I felt the gameplay overall was a bit lacking. The combat especially, I found pretty boring. Like, I played through the game on hard, without a HUD or anything, and I was never really challenged all that much. Like, and a bunch of the fights were just really boring. on the heart because of the bullets, the tank sponging, where they would just absorb damage and you would wail on them, on the enemies for hours. Like the elephant fights are just unbelievably tedious, and their AI is broken in places.
I just love the idea of beating the crap out of an elephant with a scepter and it somehow dies.
Yeah.
You know how long that'd take?
Just beating like his right leg. He's like, all right, fuck.
Feels
you
like
got me.
But
Lord of the Rings.
the thing that's always appealed to me about the Assassin's Creed games is the virtual tourism aspect of just exploring this ancient historical setting. And the setting in Origins, as you guys touched on, is absolutely amazing, absolutely beautiful. Like, I don't need the activities. I can just go into that world and just wander the desert, or wander the streets of Alexandria or Memphis or whatever. I don't need the activities. I can just sort of lose myself in the world, just exploring it and just going through it. And that's enough for me to just completely enjoy the game. So that side of the game I just fell completely in love with, but the gameplay wasn't all that great for me, I have to say. Like, I actually preferred the combat in Unity. I thought Unity still has the best combat of any Assassin's Creed game for me.
Wow. Okay. What about you there, Ralph? So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I finished this just recently. I just feel like the whole game is this gigantic missed opportunity by every single metric. Like, the world is so magnificent, but it doesn't ask you to really do anything in that world at any point in time. Like, there's this one example where I walk into the Library of Alexandria, and it's like, whoa, I'm in the Library of Alexandria. This is amazing. And then it's like, find the secret papyrus is the location objective. Yeah. So what do? You hold up on the D-pad, it pings the papyrus on the map, you go over to it, you pick it up, and you walk away. It's like, the whole game conditions you to look for markers rather than it does ask you to enjoy the beauty of this world. You're not really, there's no tactile connection to this space that it's created.
But you can switch them off though.
Yeah, sure. But then but the game isn't actually built correcly for me to be able to find that papyrus, because they all look the same as the other papyruses sitting around it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So totally. That part didn't work for me, and the story I just thought was so boring. I mean, like, I was really trudging through it, and the side quests I thought were just, I feel like the glue that holds an open world game together is the writing. You know, there's not much that separates The Witcher and Assassin's Creed Origins in manifest difference other than the writing. If you give me a good script to run with for a side quest, I'll do it. You know, but if you don't, and you're just making me go and get the old man's book because he wants it, and he comes back and he's dead, and I only met him 2 seconds ago, I still don't care that he's dead. I still don't care about his book, and I just care about the fact that I got some experience, you know? So also, I think as well, the writing also has a lot of impact on place. It's like, if you remember The Witcher, you have these areas in your mind that you remember going back to many, many times, and you get a stronger sense of place because the writing pulls you back to that location to meet that NPC where something big goes down. Assassin's Creed Origins is an exercise in going from place to place to place to place to place to place to place, and then the game is done. You never really revisit certain locations. Big sort of hallmark events don't go down in these incredible spots that really sort of burn them into your mind, you know? So I feel that it can look beautiful, but it also needs to be written beautifully to really leave a lasting impression. And because the game isn't written beautifully, it doesn't work. And I think the RPG was the worst. I just think the RPG was the worst, because it was basically just an exercise where find one weapon that's good and then just keep upgrading that one. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. That's the whole RPG system, because there's different types of weapons, and maybe you like using polearms versus other things. But I had a sword that had instant charge, which is what you need to be able to break down their shields and stun opponents. As soon as I found that sword, I tried other weapons, and I said, no other weapon is as good as this. I took this one sword that I decided was the best. I just leveled it up throughout the rest of the game, and that was it. Like, that was the whole RPG system. It was, you don't need to find specific weapons, because if once you've got the one that you want, you take it with you through the rest of the journey. And I'm sure some people think that's great, but like, as a result of that, I completely switched off from the whole weapon system, the whole RPG system, the whole crafting system, all of it. I ignored it because I'm like, I've already got my one sword that's the best sword. Why do I need to worry about the rest of it, you know? So I feel like on every metric I look at this game and I kind of think, if you'd just done this, it would have been really good. You know, it's a real solid 7 out of 10 for me in my mind. And look, to be honest, I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it for about the first, I'd say, 20 hours. The last then 10 hours of like, the last 10 hours, I swear to God, I felt like the game. It felt like the Lord of the Rings, where it kind of had 4 endings, and you're like, come on, this surely is the ending now, right? Please tell me this is the ending. And then it like fades to black and then fades back up again, and there's another mission with another character, and you got to kill another fleet of ships, and it just drew on and on and on. And I know I'm ragging on the game really hard, and you know it doesn't deserve hate, but there's so many people that I find has said like this is the best game they've played all the year. It's their game of the year, and I'm like, I cannot see that. I cannot for the life
missed
of me.
a series.
I cannot. Yeah. I just can't get it. So
who's played Rogue besides me?
I have not played Rogue.
So I do believe that there is a chance also that people who played Rogue find Rogue's story more enjoyable. This story in this game, I think Rogue has probably the best story. And so it's like when I was playing this game in the starting, we all know what happens at the starting. And you're like, what? Like, what is even fucking occurring right now? It just sort of, it throws you in, and then it threw me in, but it also never made me go, oh, I care. I mean, I just did not give a shit. And he by about the third cutscene or whatever, it felt like he was mumbling. I was just like, yeah, whatever. Like none of this even matters to me. But
is this Rogue or is this Origins?
Sorry, this is Origins. And that's how I felt. It just thrust you in, where Rogue had one of the best stories, and it was contained a little tighter, at least to me. And so I compared it to like that tight, and I guess I was assuming Rogue or Origins would have that better story. For some reason, I know that they said, oh, this is our first title where it's more about the gamer, but I was still expecting them to like, I don't make it narratively pay off. And it didn't. Here's the thing that solidified mediocrity for me. When I ran around the back of that Sphinx and there was a fucking stone missing so that I could go in and do their puzzle. And I was like, this is the most rote 1, 2, 3 I've ever seen in a game. Because I mean, come on. You could have put the entrance somewhere else, but you go around and he's like, there's a giant gap here. And there's air blowing through it.
And no one's ever noticed it before.
And no one's ever fucking noticed it. Or the fact that I'm like you, Silver, and I love No HUD. Primal No HUD is fantastic, regardless of what Maddie says. Primal's an amazing game, and Maddie's wrong. I'm just joking. So I turned off the HUD, and this is one of those games where the quest giver moves, and so you don't know that because nobody looks different, and so you'll go back and you'll be all, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Where is this person? And they're in another town. And you're just like, how the fuck am I supposed to? It doesn't feel possible to play it with their options.
And Ghost Recon Wildlands is another example where it's like it's not designed for no HUD. There's like a no HUD option, but the game just breaks down if you turn off the HUD. It's like you can do it, but it's just not pleasant, you know? There needs to be like a properly designed no HUD mode that says, okay, we know you don't want HUD, but you actually need this one thing. So just have that one thing, and the rest of it you don't have. Like that doesn't exist, and for that is like, oh God, you know.
And remember, Syndicate, the prior game, had tons of options for no HUD. They had like 15 or 20 options, and then this game is like HUD, no HUD.
Wildlands does too, actually. Now it does anyway. I don't remember if it did that
at launch. At launch, it had those options, but they didn't quite work right. And you'd ask to turn off one thing, but it would actually turn off all the things, and you kind of, well, I need that one thing. So I don't know if they've changed that since then, but it certainly didn't work.
There are definitely just individual things you can turn on and off, like item indicators, objective indicators, and so on, that you can just turn on and off, and your ammo and so on as well.
Okay, so I didn't put this question in, but I'm going to ask everybody for a quick answer. Skill, you'll go first. Where do you want it to be next? Where do you want Assassin's Creed to go next?
Oh man, I mean everyone always says Japan. I mean that'd be pretty cool. I mean I'm a big lover of ancient Rome, and I know this, and I feel like unfortunately Assassin's Creed Origins really spent the Rome card, and that makes me super sad. You know what I mean? Because there was a way to do, Egypt without touching Rome, and they didn't do it. And now I don't think they can do that now, which is just a lost opportunity. But But yeah, Japan would be pretty damn awesome. I'd be a big fan of that. I mean, I'd also be really keen for them to do something around like World War One, and the formation of that, and like the former Ottoman Empire and that sort of era. I think would be really fascinating if they went into that space. Europe, a pan-European adventure just before, just immediately after the outbreak of World War One. I think it'd be pretty interesting. And there's lots of historical characters that they could lean into there. Stuff was going down. I'd like that. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's actually a really good suggestion. What about you, Silver?
Well, it's no secret that it's the Roman Republic for me, the ancient Roman Republic. Yeah, I think maybe they have spent the card, but with Origins. But you could also sort of look at it that maybe they've actually sort of the engine that they've built with Origins and so on, sort of would tie in well to an ancient Roman setting. It certainly ties in well to an ancient setting in general, whether it's Rome or Greece, or Greece could also be really fascinating, like with Alexander the Great, maybe going conquering with him. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
Do you, Silver? Wasn't 2 and Brotherhood? Didn't they overlap? So they could still, right? I thought 2 and Brotherhood overlapped a little bit.
Well,
in like their time.
Brotherhood sort of picks up immediately after 2.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
So, you could a little bit. What about you, Reg?
Yeah.
Now that you played
more
in
like
Origins,
maybe Brazil or something like that.
Something
like
different.
Something different, basically. Yeah. Like otherwise, second one would be like maybe China.
What about Mayans?
Yeah, Mayans would also be interesting. Although, there's also the pyramids again, kinda, but in the jungle. So I'm not sure if that would work that well after Egypt.
Right. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. What about you?
Once you've seen one pyramid, you've seen them all.
Well, not that, but I would assume they would insert at least one other area in between before.
You know what would be awesome if it was like called Origins 2 and they just put trees everywhere and they were like, "Ha! You're actually in the Mayan days." What about you, Lone?
Just one thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. The only thing I would really wish for, is if they let the Animus thing just die. Just remove it completely, please.
Yeah.
God, that was so bad, wasn't it?
Yes, it was horrible.
I was just like, why the hell are you doing this now? What is the point?
I was like, where's the skip? Where's the skip button?
It is obviously this pride. Someone at the studio is like, nope, I refuse to remove it. No, it's staying forever.
Work this time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. It'll work. Trust me, guys. Trust.
It is the definition of pointless. It is the definition of in the way. It was so bad.
Yeah. What about you, Lone?
I think the obvious answer is feudal Japan, but the one that I'll actually prefer more is a Viking-themed Assassin's Creed.
Oh,
because I've been watching a lot of Vikings. I don't know if any of you have watched it, and the reason why it's a great show. The reason why this show works so well is that it's kind of like I really like movies and TV shows that portray the bad guys, but you're kind of taught or the way those bad guys are represented, you come to like them and you kind of want to support the bad guys. It's very similar. I don't know if you've watched Sons of Anarchy. They're fucking bikies and drug runners and arms dealers. But the way the story is portrayed is that, I want these bad guys. Yeah, let them sell drugs. Let them do their shit. And Vikings is very similar, is because they're literally Vikings going around to innocent people raiding towns. And you're supporting them in that endeavor, right? So, the reason why I would like that in Assassin's Creed, one, because I think it's a cool setting, you could have really cool looking characters and stuff. But two, almost every Assassin's Creed game that I can think of is you're the good guy, right? You are the assassin. In AC Origins, you are, the guy that's helping the townspeople and around Egypt and all that kind of stuff. Have an Assassin's Creed game set in the Viking era where you're raiding towns. And you're actually the bad guy, technically, because you're a Viking. And you're killing people and you're pillaging and all that. And then involve the story around that kind of dynamic. I think that would be awesome.
I never even thought about that. That would work. It would. Can you imagine, like, the idea of, like, choosing on a map where you want your boat to go to do raids, and then each... Like little like
For Honor kind of did that. It dabbled in it, but it had like the 3 different classes. and it didn't go full bore with the Viking idea. And I think like exactly like you mentioned, this is exactly what happens in the series. They're pretty much going around to Norway and to England and to Wessex, and they're raiding all these kingdoms, and they just fucking can't stop them because they're these big burly Vikings. And again, like you would be the bad person in that particular circumstance in Assassin's Creed. But I think it's a good thing. I think it'll be a nice change of pace.
Well, we sort of had that with Black Flag, didn't we? Where you were sort of the bad person as a pirate.
That's a good point, because I haven't played that much Black Flag. Yeah.
And Rogue in a weird way when you turn. But it was funny. You said they dabbled in, and I was like, For Honor dabbled in being good. That game is not very good. So I haven't seen like the parts you're even talking about. I didn't. Man. Not a fan.
It's a very, very, very average game.
Yeah. What about you, Matty?
Like Lone, first thing I always think of is feudal Japan. If I really had my way, that's where I wanted it going. But for the sake of discussion, I was away from my computer for a sec, so if someone did bring it up, I apologize. But I remember in Unity, there was a little side story, I guess you could say, or was it Syndicate? I apologize. And you went to like a World War I era. And I really liked that. I thought it was refreshing. I thought like there was a good opportunity there to do something unique for the series. And I know a lot of the Assassin's Creed identity is like all the melee weapons and stuff, but they always try to like in Assassin's Creed 2, there was a gun. They always try to add like some types of different ranged weapons. And I'm like, what would happen if they kind of moved it to one of those points in time where, yes, we had like fully automatic submachine guns and stuff along those lines. Would that work in like a World War II setting? I'd just be curious. I don't know how they do it without obviously turning into like a third-person shooter like most Ubisoft games. But for the just the idea of a time period, what they did with World War I thought was really cool in Syndicate, and I felt like it was an experiment for something coming in the future, and they haven't done anything with it yet. But that's where I'd pick for it to go, because we already have a sample of it, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I think if I'm right, Silver would know. But at the start of the war, wasn't like, I mean, a good 80% of the weapons were still they weren't even automatic. They were still black.
Yeah, I was when I said fully automatic, I was talking about World War II.
World War II, right? No, that's okay.
With World War I, it was mostly semi-auto, I believe.
Yeah, the reason why I was bringing it up though was because of like that black powder. I'm assuming they also had bayonets, so it's like you could have different stuff there, and that would be.
And they had that in AC3.
I mean.
Musket with the
Matty mentioned that
they did
the Assassin's Creed reliance on melee combat, and sort of World War I would probably be like the last setting, still somewhat appropriate for that, where that was still, because you still carried sabers and so forth into battle back then.
It would be cool if they did
Civil War.
Assassin's Creed Blood Dragon 2. They should totally continue the Blood Dragon series in Assassin's Creed instead of Far Cry. That'd be fucking awesome. I'd play that game for sure.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was going to say futuristic, but there's nowhere to go, because I don't want to go to the Animus. So you would have to go farther than that. And I don't know if they even know what the fuck they're talking about right now.
In the land past the Animus.
Yeah, exactly. In a time long ago and far away, and you're like, yes. But
I'm not
Blood
so
Dragon,
down on the Animus as you guys are. Like I don't mind it.
Dude,
I'm not. I'm really not.
You said you played Origins, right?
You are
Look, you're right. It's,
Wrong.
In Origins,
you're in the 1% right
poorly.
now. I'm telling you.
Absolutely. But think about it. It's literally the hook, or the kind of like foundation point.
No.
Slap
my ass in there. I like the idea they had with the movies and stuff in Black Flag, where they're like, we're making movies about these guys, and you're gonna go in and research them. It's like, all right, I bought in. I'm playing my story now. Whatever.
Yeah, but like,
let him finish. Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
All I'm saying is that it kind of gives the game the reason to explore all these different, historical settings. In a way, it might not be executed brilliantly, but
I see what
in
you're
a way that makes sense, right? I mean, instead of just saying, all right, now we're going to go to Egypt. Well, why are we going to Egypt, Are we just going to have a game that has no continuity, with the previous games? Like, how do they all link together? But and you're saying, yes, but
like Far Cry, how does Far Cry need to link together?
But and that's probably why I'm not so into Far Cry. Like, the reason why I like Assassin's Creed is because, look, at least for the initial games, mind you, and I haven't really experienced like kind of like the mid Assassin's Creed Animuses and how they're executed. But initially, I was really enamored with the story of Desmond and how that story progressed outside of the Assassin's Creed world. I think those ones were done right. AC Origins, absolutely underwhelming, but I don't think that's a reason to completely get rid of the Animus entirely.
If I remember, I forgot who said it. Someone said, and I don't know if this is true, but isn't the Animus section of Origins connected to the movies?
Oh, I hope
or
not.
movie?
Some of it is, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go. It's like
To the film.
who watched that?
Yeah, like I was really rooting for that movie to be good, and it was just kind of like
we had a whole debate with me, you, and Noah that we lost on a podcast episode. Do you remember that?
I remember that. I was like,
so
it's gonna
heated.
be good. It's got Fassbender and all that, and I should have realized. Look, with like X-Men, Michael Fassbender is not enough to save a movie. As good as he is, he's not enough to save
so
a movie.
true.
Yeah, like,
That was such a shit movie, and anybody who likes it's stupid.
oh, dude,
Man, that X-Men of what was that fucking fuckpocalypse?
Oh,
Oh
man,
my
that
god.
was so bad.
They
And by the
fucked
way,
up an
if
epic
somebody
villain.
liked it, you're not stupid. I'm just
No.
joking. What I was gonna say though was, I can see where Lone's coming from. It is the crux that moves you from place to place. But Far Cry doesn't have a shared narrative in any way close to. I mean, it had Primal, which had no. So I can see where Far Cry gets away with it. But in Assassin's Creed, I guess you do need, like Lone said, you do need some crux to move you from place to place.
Ubisoft, and this could be one way to continue, is I think Ubisoft confirmed that like Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed
that is
shared the
correct.
same universe. So
They do.
just say it's a study. Boom.
Yeah.
As someone who's played pretty much all of the Assassin's Creed games and engages with the maiden narrative, I do sort of enjoy just picking up on the references that are there and sort of putting the dots together and connecting those puzzles that are sort of outside of the game itself. I do find that a little bit engaging and enjoyable. And yeah, as Lone said, it provides a red thread for the narrative.
I mean, the end of AC2, for instance, like when you step out of the Animus and you see the blood on the wall, that shit blew me away. And I thought that kind of underlying narrative, it never would have been there unless you had the whole, all right, here's an Animus, oh, we've abducted you, this is Abstergo. And I don't know, it just makes this entire franchise sit together. It may not always be executed brilliantly, I completely agree. But then I feel like you take away the Animus, then it's just like any other game like Far Cry, where you're just thrown into this setting and it's a kind of independent game, which is great, mind you. But you can, like, I think Assassin's Creed, you can still have that and also have that underlying thread with the Animus. And if you don't like it, just skip the Animus.
I'm not saying take it away, but just there is a much simpler reason.
You can though, can't you?
They, like I said, I think they had it in Black Flag, and I don't know why they just ditched it.
Yeah.
Just having Abstergo investigate for movies. It's like,
I loved that. Yeah, that was awesome.
I was like, okay, they can go anywhere now. They are set up. And they just stopped, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was trying to think. I never gave my idea of.
What's your idea?
I don't have one, because I think I think the problem is, and not to be rude, but I think you go too far back and then you go prior to the Assassins and Templars and it just doesn't make much sense. And then you go too far forward and it doesn't really connect. And we've discussed, I think Matty was right. And I think somebody else also brought up World War I. I think those work. But World War II doesn't work as much because of the melee combat. Even though, let's be honest, they still haven't figured out how to have multiple characters really attack you efficiently.
Yeah.
They have not figured that out. So, like, and this is going to sound discriminatory, but I want to make sure I say that before I talk about this. But I think in Japan, ancient Japan, they did have martial arts and they did have those things. That would be sort of cool to see. Like, how would those physical fighting skills have worked, in a land where that was a big deal, actually, where it wasn't here in America, that kind of thing. Do you know, I actually really thought that the Native American moments in Assassin's Creed 3 were poorly done, but that they were interesting. So I would have liked to have actually revisited that with better gameplay and stuff as the kid. Yeah. But
I'm going to say this to end it. I mean, if there ever was a game that was going to ditch the Animus, it should have been AC Origins. And the fact that they didn't, that means they're never going to do it. I mean, that was it's literally the first Assassin's Creed game, if you think about it properly.
Yeah, no, you're right.
They could have gone from there and said, all right, now we're going to go to here. We can try and have a link of some sort. It could be Bayek's fucking fifth cousin or some shit. But they could have done that. But the fact that they didn't means they're never getting rid of the Animus. It's just it is Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Syndicate basically did away with it. Like I think they just had like interconnecting cutscenes or so on or something of
that is true.
Of
Syndicate
an assassin talking to you.
Yeah.
I think that was all they had, as I recall.
I mean, it could be something like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where like the spirits of past assassins speak to you. You know, they could do something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Animus either. But
bleeding effect.
Yeah, exactly. I just like the interconnectedness. However you do that, I don't know. It's probably not Animus. It's probably not the best way, but I like that continuity. And that's why I really like Marvel movies.
Well, the thing is that it's already...
For sure.
I'm basically repeating what you just said, but it is so far gone already just because it's in Origins and they didn't do it well in Origins. So now it's like, what are they going to do? Fuck it, we'll do something different this time. I mean, maybe, but...
Reg wants it not at all, it sounds like.
Yes, very much so.
So you just want them...
It's a complete detriment to the series at this point.
Okay.
It's like every time it comes up, I think, please just stop. Just let me get back to the game I enjoy instead of tearing me out into the bullshit I don't.
I will say that in Origins, it is one of the first times where when about the second time you get pushed out into the Animus and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like looking for buttons and just being like, I don't care.
Yep.
And they did a really terrible job too of trying to make you care. They're all, you're long lost, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's always the long lost. It's in the past. It has to be the long lost. Like, what the fuck other words would you use?
They always use it. I've noticed the Animus because in Origins, while it was flawed, they only popped you out a handful of times if you wanted. But when they did, it was always, I noticed, for a time lapse. Like they pop you out and then you come back in and it'd be months later. And I wonder if they just use it as that narrative purpose. So it makes sense in your head that like, okay, we're ahead 10 months now. It's not like, you complete a mission, loading screen. It's like 10 years later. It's like, what the fuck?
That makes sense. That
was actually one of my biggest problems with the narratives in the older Assassin's Creed games, which the time lapses that just happened seemingly randomly.
There you go.
Yeah. Nothing happened for 7 months.
But
let's go.
I will say that the Animus idea made sense for the original games, and I think it worked pretty well in them. But since then, the last 3, maybe even 4 Assassin's Creed titles, I don't have the impression they have any idea of where to go with it.
Yeah.
Right.
To be
it's
honest,
just there to be there.
I mean, I really enjoyed the original ones, and I didn't even play a couple of the ones in the middle, so that's probably why I still like it. Maybe if I did play, Rogue and Flag and whatever it is, then I'd probably think, all right, fuck this Animus. Get rid of it.
Yeah. That's an interesting discussion because we have some people who like the game, some who don't, and certainly the reasons why we like it are different. I think we can all agree that it is one of the games that, like Horizon Zero Dawn, it handles towers pretty well. So that ability.
Yeah. Horizon Towers were also fun.
Horizon Towers were cool because you didn't even really, you knew, but you didn't. There's absolutely
it's a robot, so
it's
a
fine.
Moving object in the world too, and the way you actually like. Okay, I don't just scale the side of a building. It's like, okay, I got to get on this ledge, jump to it.
Yeah,
so,
that's cool.
It was awesome, except I felt like the cat in Last Guardian many times with leaping to my death. Like I was having an issue in Horizon sometimes getting on the neck of that motherfucker, and sometimes you're all, is that a grab hold or just a graphic? Like. I would just do the thing where I'd be all, and I'd miss completely. Like, fuck it. Yeah, I definitely remember sitting here. I was so excited because that was one of the first games Sony had ever got me an early copy for. And I was like, oh man, I'm finally, I'm not going to have to do super expensive retail. I sit down within like an hour. One of those fuckers walks by and I spent the next 3 hours trying to defeat it. What the fuck? I was so mad. But yeah, they handled it well. Who else has handled? I think whenever it's been towers, there's been a reason. I think those are probably
Far
the
Cry
two.
Primal did as well.
Oh yeah, they were the caves and stuff like that, and they were sort of
basically
required.
Just hills.
Yeah, they were. I would say they were a little bit more required than these two. But yeah, Origins is awesome. Screw Maddie. I'm never gonna let that poor sap forget that. And then he liked
R9
Battle.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah, Maddie and I.
Everyone's faces changed. Like,
yeah, Maddie and I, we just go back and forth about because he hates Primal, I like it. He likes Hardline. I need to pull up the video of that game.
Hardline definitely set the reference point for me now. So.
Oh really? So moving on. And by the way, anybody who likes either one of those two games, God bless you, because that's what this is about. We got a little bit of time. I think the main person who needs to go is Skill, and you need to go. How much more time do you have?
Probably about 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Let's do patron questions. All right. Norwegian Imposter says, have fun. Oh, traveling back to the UK, but I'll watch.
Oh, just broke the pen. Fuck.
Leeson, oh no. Leeson says,
fucking close it.
Games like Neo and Dark Souls shipped with very poor or non-existent keyboard. I knew where this was going. I forgot it was Leeson. With very poor or non-existent keyboard and mouse support on PC. People say just use a controller. But is it acceptable to charge money for it if it requires a non-standard peripheral to play, especially since they didn't provide adequate warning to buyers?
Completely agree with that.
Yep.
So I guess we all agree?
Yes.
Especially because keyboard and mouse, it's a PC. And this, just so everybody knows, this comment came because he and I were arguing in Discord, and I wasn't understanding what he was saying, and I was like, no, you're stupid. It's dumb. I'm just joking. I wasn't telling him he was stupid, but I didn't understand where he was coming from, and then he was saying, no, it's the standard, like control for that. And it would be weird, I guess, to get an Xbox where, there were motion games for the Kinect, but you still used your controller to get into it and shit. Like,
and they marked it on the box.
And there was a warning. You were like, it's a fucking Kinect game. I'm pretty sure it's going to need that. But with Neo, I know a lot of people were pissed at that port, man. They were like, what the? Because you could move the keyboard. The mouse didn't work, but like the WASD would move you around. So it was like you could use like a half a controller and half the keyboard. Good question, Leeson. We all agree. Leeson asks also, which game subverted your expectations the most? Which game did you think you would love but turned out hating?
Oh, that's a good question.
Destiny 2.
Dropping the heat? Really, Destiny 2 for you. So you thought you'd love it and you hated it.
Well, no, I guess I thought I'd love it because, they'd done a magnificent job of improving the game since the original release, Vanilla, which really was pretty average. And then Destiny 1 by its end was just awesome. And then Destiny 2 came out, and it's obvious to think, well, it's just going to be a better version of that with more stuff and some new features. And it was actually a worse version of Destiny 1 with less features. But the thing that's obviously made me, and hate is a very strong word, but I think it's pretty spot on at this point, is just the way that, Bungie is treating its community and its focus on monetization. And it's just completely taking the piss at this point. So you've taken a game that I really reviewed, and I was pretty negative in the review in terms of like, I don't like this, but you know what? I'm going to really stick with you guys on this because I feel like, Bungie, you've proven that you can do the right thing here, and you've proven you can improve the experience. Within the space of 3 months, they've just displayed no goodwill whatsoever. And have in fact displayed the worst possible will, such that I've just sworn off the game now, and I've said, no way, that's it. And so many people in the community have done the same thing. There's a real mutiny going on right now, sort of like remove the Eververse. The entire front page of Bungie's forums is threads, remove Eververse, remove Eververse, remove Eververse. Wow. Like it's just constant, because people are so fed up with just how greedy this game has become, and how little it's offering in return for, when it's asking for money. So
that's sad.
Sad times, man. Very sad. And I say that as a tremendous lover of Bungie and Destiny, like a die-hard fanboy. I'm not Johnny come lately. I've been playing Bungie games for 20 years, but this is just too much now. It's
one
just
of those
too
things
much.
Where with the way I was talking about this in my Discord, the way they treat Destiny 2, you got to wonder if like Halo was just a big lightning in the bottle, because they did a phenomenal job with Halo. And then you look at Destiny. And I mean, I'll admit though, I didn't follow Destiny 1 as closely, but 2, I'm just like, what's happening?
I don't think it was. If you look at the way that studio evolved, Halo 1, 2, 3, ODST, Reach, they all got better. You know, like you might say one part of it was better than the other part in terms of story, in terms of weapon design, whatever. But like overall, the meta narrative was this is a studio that continued to learn and grow and apply its learnings to the next title that came after it. But here was exactly the opposite. Destiny 1 feels like a sequel to Destiny 2. Destiny 1 is infinitely more feature complete and better. Wow. It's a massive regression. That's crazy. That's a huge statement. And then on top of that is the economics, is the commercials, which are atrocious at this point. You know, it's like a free-to-play game where all of the best stuff is hidden behind loot boxes. So it's artistically and commercially a huge regression.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that puts the cap on Destiny. Anybody have any other? Jesus Christ! It's just neuter Destiny with no shot, just snip.
Damn.
Go ahead, Silver. Sorry.
Mass Effect Andromeda.
Why?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So why? Obviously, we don't agree. So I'm just joking. So what? Why is that?
Putting aside all the bugs, because it's the buggiest game I've played in years, which is saying something. Putting aside all the bugs and the glitches and so forth, what really disappointed me most about the game was just the quality of the writing, which I found completely atrocious. It was ridiculous. None of the characters were memorable to me. I don't remember them now. Like 6 months after having played through the game.
Yeah. I had the same thing the other day.
I don't remember any particular lines or of dialogue, any quests that were memorable. There's nothing that sticks out at all. Like I've forgotten maybe 90% of the game, and I would have 100%ed it if not for a bug that made me stuck at 99. But
icing on the cake. Oof.
Yeah, but I mean, I had low I had medium expectations for the gameplay, but I had high expectations for the writing because of BioWare. But they were not met.
Fuck, this is hard to take, man. Those are two huge disappointments. Reg, what's you got a good one instead?
Well, Origins is my good one.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I had completely written off the series. I was like, whatever, Assassin's Creed, I'm done with that.
And you were reminded in the comments many times. People were like, "Oh my God, Reg, what?" That's awesome.
And the closer it got to the release, and the more I learned about the changes they did to the formula, and basically changing all the things that really bugged me about the series, I tried it again and actually enjoyed it a lot. So that's my positive surprise of the year.
I'll give you time. Do you have a negative then?
Well, the negative is, I mean, Andromeda is definitely the number one negative.
Damn. What about you, Lone?
I will say probably Evil Within in recent memory. I was so disappointed with that game. I really was.
Oh, really? Everyone seemed to love that game.
Oh, so was I, though. I was disappointed.
I was disappointed as well, but I wouldn't.
I've heard so many positive things. Why does it suck so much? What's the problem?
So here's the weird thing, because I didn't play Evil Within, and then I played a demo of Evil Within 2, and I thought, oh, this is cool. I'm going to go back and play 1 and get ready for the sequel. And I was so disappointed because especially the main character, Sebastian, he was boring, drab, one-dimensional, and he did not hook me at all. The story was...
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. Are you talking about number 1 or 2?
1.
Like, okay, so you're saying your most disappointing was number 1.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood. Right.
And because I was hyped for it after playing 2, so I went backwards. Right. But
okay. I thought you meant 2.
Wait. You played 2 entirely, the full game first?
No. So I played like, I don't know, a couple different missions and demos of 2, and then I thought I would like 1 because of that. So I admittedly, I went completely backwards. But even I heard, Matty, you didn't like 2, and Karak, you didn't like 2.
I didn't like 2.
Yeah, but I really didn't like 1. And I thought that I would, based on my short experience with 2. And I thought 1 was just disappointing.
You know what you just did? You guys joke because I always say I like spoilers. You did a spoiler. You sort of got to see the end, and then you go back to the start. And sometimes it can adjust the way you feel about things. Yeah. But I think also 1 just, at the time, not to be rude, but 1 was sort of janky the day it came out.
Very janky.
Really? I mean, so it's like, it's hard to go back to something that janky now. And just be like, okay, we're gonna try.
And I haven't played it since, when did it come out? 2013. I haven't played it since then, but I have much more fond memories of how 1 was, because although it was janky, it almost took pride in that, and because that clunkiness lent itself to the gameplay in a way, like an old Resident Evil title in a way. Whereas the Evil Within 2 was like, it felt like more of an action game. It reminds me of like what happened with Resident Evil 1, like 4, and then you look at 5 and 6. And 5 is my favorite. I'll admit it every day, but like that's not what Resident Evil is known for at all. And it's such a complete difference.
Yeah. For me, I would say, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think it released. I got to make sure I'm right on the timing. No, I'm wrong on the timing. So it can't be. Did Resident Evil 7 release this year?
Yeah, it was this year.
Yeah.
It was at the starting though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I kept thinking it was December. But for me, it was that, because VR in that, like, that was, I'm not a huge Resident Evil fan. I'm a fan, but not a fanboy. And I remember putting on the VR, and there's a dinner table moment.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's
VR,
cool.
that VR completely changed. And even blurry mess that the PSVR is, when that chick and that dude are like walking and moving around, and somebody gets in your face, and they're in your face, and you're like, what the fuck? Yeah, that was next level VR. And that was one where I just didn't think the VR would work that well. And instead there's the cutscenes, if you guys remember, where they're going in with the VHS camera, the Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're in VR and you're watching that, you sort of feel like the cameraman. There's even though it's not doing VR at that time, it just added something to it. And so for me, that was the biggest surprise. Elix was a pretty big surprise too, because Piranha Bytes releases buggy games as fuck. Like, they're just a bug simulator. It's like an Amsterdam bedspread or something. It's just buggy. And instead, it was somewhat buggy, but it was so enjoyable. Such an enjoyable game. Really surprising. And then I gotta say one more, Rabbids, real quick, because I didn't expect.
I agree.
No way I expected Rabbids to be good. So
I remember playing Rabbids at E3 actually, and as soon as I looked at it, I was like, I said to the Ubisoft guy, I said, "This is fucking amazing." That was immediately my game of show as soon as I sat down and went hands on with it, because I'm like, what you guys have done here is something special,
Oh, so, dude, it is.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah.
That would definitely be my biggest surprise of the year, positive wise at least.
Oh, did I skip Maddie?
Yes, actually, I think
I sincerely apologize. We started talking about people within. So, Maddie, what would be your? So that would be your positive.
Yeah, that would be my positive. On my own podcast, I've raved to Alone and yourself as well about how much I enjoyed Kingdom Battle. But on the negative side, I'd say Battlefront 2, because it's such a weird case, because like, objectively speaking, when I look at the game, I'm like, okay, there's much more content. I really enjoy the multiplayer more. I've already sunk more hours in that than I have with Battlefront 1. 1 was incredibly disappointing and boring, even as a big Star Wars fan. But it's just like the situation surrounding 2. But if we're talking just the game in general, it's NHL 18. That is a joke of a sports game. Awful.
From EA? No.
I'm really sad to hear that.
It is.
I play NHL.
Yeah, and I played NHL every year since 11, and every year it's the same complaints. It's like, when did they fucking learn? Like, their character models are awful. There is like 2 players in the game that look like they're actual current NHL players. Whoever does the stat tracking and ranks players based off of that needs to be fired, because I'm sorry, I know we've talked about, we don't want people fired. That person does not know hockey and should not be ranking players, because they'll give a really bad player like a 90, and it's like, no, they were gone half the season. They were hurt. How are they a 90? Right. The modes, they don't, like, we see, and what's frustrating is this year in particular, because we'll see like Madden Long Shot. Cool story mode. A lot of people positively received it. It's like, this is a new thing for sports games. Yes, we got our same old Madden. I know Madden has like the Ultimate Team problem, which everyone either likes or hates. But at least we saw something new, a sports game trying to take a step forward. And then I look at NHL, and it's like they are just set in the same rhythm. They don't push forward. They're so regressed technologically as well. It's so disappointing. So for me, that's absolutely the most disappointing game this year.
Wow. That's harsh. Those are some big disappointments too. And I forgot about Andromeda.
I love hockey, and I don't even play it anymore. I don't even play it.
That sucks. Skill, how much time you got left?
I've got another 10 minutes.
Okay, great. Martin Adams says, "Hey, Karak, I was wondering if y'all have ever been through dreaded gamer fatigue before. I'm sure it's pretty common as game reviewers, but do y'all ever get it?" We'll just say for everybody, gamer fatigue. Do you guys ever step away from games because you're just like, I'm done? We'll start with Maddie because we finished with him.
Gamer
Maddie.
fatigue. Yeah, Karak, you and I have talked about that a lot. Yes, I have had gamer fatigue plenty of times before, because what happens is moderation is key. You need to take breaks and balance it out. As much as I love video games, like, what makes it enjoyable is I'll settle down into it, or I'll be out for the day and then I'll get to it. When I just do it 24/7 now, it becomes just mentally fatiguing, because it's like stuff that I could be critiquing just starts to glance off both positively and negatively. And so for me, I totally know where this person's coming from, and it's like you just gotta balance it out. Like, go out for a couple hours, then come back. The game's totally different. So yeah, I've had that before, and it gets amplified for all of us because we make gaming videos. So it's not just I'm spending my free time gaming. It's like you're also making videos about it, discussing it, writing scripts about it. So there's a lot of games, which is good. But I've always said too much of anything in life, like that can turn into a negative real fast. So yeah, game fatigue is something I've had before, and you gotta balance it out.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Lone?
Yeah, it was. I remember a period like 3 years ago or something, where I just couldn't play games. I don't know what it was. Every time I tried to sit down and play, even like one of my favorite games of all time, Fallout 3, I just couldn't. I sat down and I just couldn't play it, and I couldn't do anything, and I don't know why. And I don't think I came back to gaming. It was like a year, so it wasn't like any crazy amount of time, but I just thought, I don't know why, I can't sit down and play games. And it was a really, really weird thing for me, because I thought I have like the weekend free, and I'll just watch YouTube videos. It was a shitty time. I was like, yeah. So I couldn't explain that, but that was an annoying moment for me.
That sounds terrible, actually.
It was fucking awful.
What about you, Reg?
Well, I mean, I only play games in my free time, so I don't really have that issue. Also, I'm not even playing as is every day. Sometimes I'm just like checking out videos, maybe reading about video games, but not actually playing any of them. So I do have definitely serious fatigue and stuff like that, but not games as a whole.
What about you, Silver?
Yeah, I've had game fatigue from time to time, but not like for longer periods. It's been like a week or maybe a couple of weeks, or where I've done other stuff and then come back to it. I think it's perfectly natural, and as Maddie said, it's a question of balancing it out with your day.
What do you do? Do you just snort coke and drink, or what do you do for your?
No, I'm really boring. I read.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Fun. Yeah, I like reading.
While saving the world, as Tobey Maguire. So, you just sort of step to the side, read for a little bit, then come back.
Yeah, read, watch movies, hang out with friends, whatever, or write too.
Oh, very cool.
I must be boring too.
Yeah, exactly. Same shit. What about you, Skill?
I definitely do. I feel like I'm actually sort of feeling that way now a little bit, because I guess I work full time as well as, do this whole YouTube thing. So, and when I do play games, it's always has to be for work now. Like, I really can't play anything just to enjoy. So, and stuff like Assassin's Creed, that last 10 hours really killed me, because I was like, I have to do this. I don't want to do it. And it's those sorts of things that really that those 10 hours feel like 100, because you're forcing yourself to do it. You're not having fun, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And that really pulls you out of the desire to play more video games, So I feel like I've got a break coming up now with Christmas, which I'm really looking forward to. Just some time off is going to be good. but yeah, I don't really have an answer to it in the context of reviews and doing what we do, because sometimes, yeah, you are going to face situations where you just don't want to play, but you kind of have to because it's what you do, you know. And I don't really have a plan yet for how I overcome that. So that's a work in progress, to be honest.
Gotcha. So for me, I would say the gamer fatigue I have is that I get really tired of gamers. And that's going to sound negative, but I really do. And here's why. I feel that certain games, for example, Origins, Skill Up and I both had issues with Origins about halfway to 3/4 of the way through. Maddie did. A couple of us did. And you hear, so like I'll review it after playing it all. And somebody will be like, well, I played 2 hours. It's the best game ever. And there's this feeling of saying, first of all, you're completely wrong if you think I want this game to be bad. Because you know what I would like? Yes, we do need bad games, but I would love if somehow magically we didn't need the bad. Everybody was highly skilled. Every developer made great games. We could just move forward that way. There is no celebration in bad. There is maybe a celebration of me getting to say words that I want to say and yell at people. But so I get a gamer fatigue when I interact, but that's also the juice for me. So like in the Discord, when somebody makes me laugh, that can pay me off for 2 or 3 days, where I'll just be like, oh, I'll just go in there. We'll talk about this. It's hilarious. And I can get through it that way. So I don't really get gamer fatigue in games. And if I do, we have breaks all the time. You know, embargoes come up on a Monday or whatever. It doesn't mean we haven't had the game for 2 weeks and you've already beat it. And it's been sitting. Like Matty can do, he doesn't do game reviews this way, but he does news videos sometimes. He'll do multiple ones and they're sort of spread out. Which is something I have a fucking horrendously difficult time doing, but it is possible. It's possible to sometimes where people think, oh, you're reviewing these 2 games, and you're all, no, I played those 2 games like a full, week ago. Then the video goes live. It doesn't mean I'm, fucking creating the videos. You guys are watching it.
So that's what people think whenever for some reason there's like a weird distortion in comments on reviews where like some reviews I'll post, they'll be like, all right, this review is going up at 6 a.m. Gets embargo lifted. And people are like, how the fuck did you get the game now? You didn't even play it. I'm like, what? Like I've had this for 40 hours. Like I've played 40 hours of it. What do you mean I haven't had it?
Yeah. So that's, and I love gamers at the same time. So it's just like family. You get really tired of them, or as Vin Diesel would mumble, family. But you get tired of them, and then you're like, okay, I love you guys, and that's sort of the way I feel. I mean, people who've attacked me are some of my best patrons. I know two or three of my highest patrons are trolls, who I was just like, why are you mad at me?
Here's $100.
And no, over time, I just kept going at them. I was like, why do you hate it? And then pretty soon we started talking. They're like, okay, and they have a reason. I think a lot of people who are trolls have a reason. It's just hard to get to it sometimes. And sometimes I want to get to it by punching through their fucking crunchy outside and just tearing them the fuck apart. But that's the gamer fatigue I feel. I haven't felt any games fatigue yet. You know what I did? Somebody's asking about Final Fantasy. At the end of Final Fantasy, when I did that review, I didn't want to talk about Final Fantasy anymore. That was some fatigue. But it wasn't like the game. It was where I was like, I'm done. Like, here's my review. Let's see. Oh, Zero says, should future Final Fantasy games go FF15's live action route or go back to some form of turn-based system? What do you think, Skill?
I only played maybe the first 4 or 5 hours of Final Fantasy 15 before I said, I'm not a huge fan of this. I also played about the first 7 hours of Persona and said, I'm not a fan of this either. Now, these are 2 games that are objectively good games. I'm not saying Persona is not good. I'm just saying that I was not in a place where I was ready to put that. And funnily enough, I just started playing Persona again because, I know it's a good game. There's no way that many people could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, I personally prefer the more actiony kind of style of combat when it comes to those sorts of games. Like I played Xenoblade Chronicles X a while back, which has a sort of actiony style of JRPG combat. And I personally prefer that. I feel that the turn-based thing's a bit stale. I think it's one of the reasons that pushed me off Persona 5 as quickly as it did. But, I'm open to having my mind changed about it because everyone says it's great. So I think both can work. I mean, I really just hope that Final Fantasy 7 is turn-based. I know it's not going to be, but I just hope that it is because I really feel like they need to respect what that game was and how it worked.
Right.
But I think it's not going to be that. I think it'll be the action-y sort of thing. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. What about you, Silver? If you played 15, I can't remember if you have.
I haven't really, but I have played. I mean, I have played the other Final Fantasy games. I think I prefer turn-based to live action. Like I'm somewhat of a traditionalist when it comes to that. Like one of my most played games on my 3DS is still the old Chrono Trigger version for the Nintendo DS. That I play over and over again. Just the tactical aspect of the turn-based appeals to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Reg?
Generally, I also prefer in those games actually turn-based. Not Final Fantasy in this case, but the most recent example for me would be Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is like real-time combat, but you're really just waiting there to press the button when the button prompt appears.
Super boring.
It's kind of cheesy.
Yes, it's really the most boring combat in recent memory. So if that was turn-based, you could just go like, select, fizzle it out.
Xenoblade 2 reminds me of Final Fantasy 12. Just that's the combat I can't stand. Just waiting for the bar to throw.
Yeah, the Final Fantasy all series also had combat like that. Where it's just waiting. Like Final Fantasy, which was it, Worlds or something? Like one of the more recent ones with the little chibi characters that also works like that. Basically just waiting. It's a clicker game.
Yeah. Skill, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say those systems, they combine the frustrations of the turn-based model and the real-time model. It takes the worst parts of both of them and puts them together. You know, like this is the worst way to do it. It makes no sense to me.
What about you, Lone?
No, I wouldn't have an opinion on this. Sorry, guys. I don't really play Final Fantasy. So.
Yeah, you don't play. I forgot. What about you, Maddie?
All right.
I heard you pop off, though, but go ahead.
So I think action combat can work in Final Fantasy. We've seen it in Crisis Core. It was pretty good. And Type 0, which is widely underappreciated, I think. And that's one that I think got it right. What Final Fantasy 15 does is I just can't stand it because kind of like what we were talking about where it feels like a clicker game, except in this one you just hold circle. And then the combo goes off. And then the game will tell you when someone's about to hit you. It'll say like right in the center of the screen, press square to counter. And then you'll counter them, slow motion. And I didn't like that. There was no thought to it. Much like with the waiting for the timer to fill up and then pressing a button. I could not stand Final Fantasy 12 either. I thought that was also not only incredibly slow, but very boring. Final Fantasy 15's combat, I enjoyed the game a lot. It was number 2 in my game of the year. But when I went back to it time and time again for the DLC and stuff, it's just that's the biggest issue I have with the game is its combat. It's not good. I think action can work because, like I said, it has worked in previous entries. If they go back to turn taking, that's fine with me. But I do think action can work. They just need to take inspiration from the right games. Like Crisis Core, I think, is the best one they can take inspiration from. That worked just fine. You can make an easy, cool, flashy combo system with a Final Fantasy character. It's entirely possible. They just need to do it.
And I would say that it is weird because when I first played the game, well, and I think Maddie as well, when we reviewed it, you couldn't drive the car everywhere. You know, you were stuck on the roads. And so it felt like this two-part thing. And now you're able to do these other things. And it sort of makes more sense that it's open world and not and more real time. It all makes more sense. Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. The patch, when did that patch come out, Maddie? It came out like 6 months to a year ago, didn't it?
Yeah, that's one thing I do want to commend them
for a while.
Yeah. They've done a good job patching this game. I don't know when that one came out specifically because they just released episode Ignis, and before that they released a patch that lets you play all 4 characters in the party now, so you can swap whenever you want.
And there's co-op is coming, if I'm not correct. Or if I'm correct, right?
Multiplayer is out. I played
out.
multiplayer out. I played about 6 hours of that, and it's fun. You know, it's Final Fantasy with Monster Hunter elements.
Cool.
Yeah, it is enjoyable though. I will say that much. But that's where I was reminded. I was like, this combat's just not that good.
Yeah,
because when you play in the early levels, it's fine, but it's like when you fight those level 99 enemies, when you cap out like I did, and they just can one-hit you, but you can't properly react to them unless the game prompts you to, it's so frustrating. I can't stand it.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say is it made sense in this game, but I think I probably like turn-based as well. I don't know why. I think for me, turn-based also is that, I mean, Final Fantasy is all, it's just turn-based. So this one wasn't, but it's not that it feels horrible. It's just it feels like an MMO a little bit, which is fine. But I think the turn-based. I also like the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
There's some cool.
You can also sort of combine the two. I mean, Chrono Trigger is sort of a combination of real time and turn-based.
True. Yeah. I mean, a lot of games have tried that too with the fucking QTEs in turn-based games, where it's like you can attack and you can do more damage if you hit Q, T, A, C, C, A.
The Mario games, usually. I mean, the Mario RPG games.
That's true.
Mario
Mario
like RPG. You jump on the enemy and press A now again.
But Matty hit on one weakness, even though it didn't bother me. He hit on a weakness of the South Park games, which do that, which is like, holding buttons and doing these little, and sometimes you're just like, really, just do the full damage, fucker.
Yeah.
This is the 17th attack now. Come on.
Yeah. At some point, you're just like, you wish you could go into the options and go, always hit the green zone, and then never worry about those kind of things. Skill, do you have time for one more question?
Sure, one more.
Okay, one more. Sorry, I know we're keeping you. Let's do it this way. Sounds German asks, how, if at all, do you celebrate a typical Christmas? So go for it, Skill.
It's summertime here in Sydney, so we typically have a barbecue outside.
Hell yes!
Yeah,
and we go to the beach. So it's
fucking amazing.
That is our Christmas.
What?
That's how we do in Australia.
Take a fucking turkey to the beach and shit. Fight off kangaroos. Kangaroos.
We have prawns, mate. There's no turkey here. It's all prawns.
Oh, Jesus. Just a giant prawn the size
just a big bowl of
big one. We just stick it on our back and like.
Jesus. Just 12 pounds of fucking prawn. It's like how that thing would kill a human if the tail was that big.
Definitely.
So that's cool. So you guys do a barbecue. You go to the beach.
Yeah.
You do summertime. Have you ever been out of state and been in a place where it was winter time at Christmas?
Never. Every Christmas I've always had my family in Australia. Yeah, so I'd like to have a white Christmas one year. I think it'd be great. Yeah. But yeah, I think we do Christmas the best here in Australia. That's my suspicion.
It sounds pretty cool. What about you?
Just fairly quiet. Just me and my mother and my aunt, her sister, basically. Nice roast of duck. Really nice meal together and enjoy the evening and hand out presents. And
roasted duck?
Yeah.
Really?
That's crazy. Duck.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Duck.
Should be turkey or prawn.
duck
You're
before?
doing it wrong.
I'm not a fan of duck. I don't know why. Huh, that's different. I never thought about that. What about you, Reg?
Yeah. Same every year, like one evening with the family. This year, I think it's salmon that's on the dinner table. I know you don't like fish, but I very much like fish.
Are you fucking kidding? You're having salmon for really? So you don't even have like a good meat?
I can't wait to hear.
You don't have like you will have no turkey or ham at the table? Will it just all be salmon?
I think the alternative is like I don't know the alternative because I already checked out that salmon and I was like, okay, I'm set.
Oh my God, man, what is wrong with you people? What is wrong with everybody? What about you, Lone? How's your Christmas?
Yeah, well, it's similar to Skill Up. I mean, it's summer here, so
Yes.
But I have a bit like we usually do for lunchtime. We'll do the big bowl of prawns. Absolutely. It's an Australian thing.
This is a nightmare.
But it's summertime here. Like that's how there's our dishes. But what I will say is that something that we do a little bit differently in our family, because I have a Spanish background. Every year we go back home and my brother cooks churros in the morning. It's just a tradition that we've built up, and we don't have cinnamon. It's white sugar, traditional Spanish churros. It is the best shit ever. Like I absolutely adore it. And I've been in. I wasn't there at Christmas, but I was in Canada in Vancouver a couple weeks before Christmas in like early December, and the whole white Christmas thing. Like I was walking around in the city and people doing carols and stuff. awesome. It sounds like something that I would love to do just one Christmas, but a summer Christmas, man, you guys got to experience it just to be in your shorts and a singlet for a day.
What about you, Maddie?
So different because I'm in New York, so it's freezing cold here. It's actually snowing right now.
Oh.
So you guys talking about like, yeah, we're gonna go barbecue, chill shirtless on the porch. I'm just like, what? Like I can't even imagine. I haven't had a Christmas that isn't below zero. It feels like. For me, it's kind of like it's so big in my house because my mom's a huge Christmas freak, and that is naturally spread throughout the whole family. So it's like a multi-day thing. On the 23rd, we watch like Christmas movies all day. We do a thing called a snack party. So we get like all these crazy different little snacks and just cook them all together and eat them while we watch the movies. Christmas Eve is pretty standard day till later at night. Karak, you're going to vomit. We have the 7 fishes.
Why would you have 70 above one? What the fuck is wrong with all of you people? That is nasty.
It's like right when you reacted like that, I'm like, wait till here's how many I have on my plate.
And there's 7 different types?
Yes. Like flounder. No, I can't. Dude, it's so good. I can't believe my ears right now. It's so good. And then Christmas Day, what we do is like, it's pretty standard Christmas where, you do the stockings, breakfast, then the tree. But while we're opening underneath the tree, my grandma comes over during the middle of the day. She gets gifts for everyone. So then we throw them underneath the tree. We really like take our time. It's disgusting. So like by 5 in the evening, we're finally done. We usually start at like 10 in the morning. So like I said, it's like this whole crazy event that we try to stretch out as much as possible because we love the holidays and spending time with each other. So yeah, that's how my typical Christmas goes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Some great fish.
Fucking nasty, man.
Some prawns.
Shut up. That is just grotesque. We do the Karak Christmas, which I'm telling you right now is amazing. It's so boring. It is literally everything you've seen in like TV shows. We don't do anything special at all. It's just like turkey and some stuffing. My family will come and visit, and I'll tolerate them. And I know I get on there as they get older. And I get older. Well, I've always been mouthy, but I know even my mom and dad, sometimes I can see them look at me like, he's a mouthy little bastard. And I'm like, yes, I am. This is my house. I'll do what I want. Say what I want. We dress up the dogs, give them, I bought a fucking elf suit for the dog for no reason. I have no clue why. We took some pictures, but yeah, we don't do anything special except for, and this is the picture of health. And I want everybody to understand that I push health on this channel, as you guys know. Supernatural, all vegan material that I eat on this channel, and I don't drink Monster. Absolutely. But do you know what I do? I get 2 gallons of eggnog, and I drink that shit in one day.
That sounds very bad for you.
I
don't know what eggnog is. It sounds very bad for you.
You got to work out your heart. You have to work out your heart like you work out a bicep. Sometimes you got to give
Karak
that something. You got to give it something to churn through, and I will fucking get that eggnog. My family hates eggnog, except for me. And I'll get that fucking eggnog and just be like,
yeah,
and
never
my
had
family's
eggnog.
like,
someone make a gift of that right there. What he just did.
Yeah.
Someone make a gift of that, please.
Yeah, it is fantastic. It's like my family, some smoke, some drink, what have you. And I'm the one that only once a year do I get to like explore my vice. And I explore that bitch. Like, it is hedonistic. My love affair with eggnog is hedonistic. It is weird. And I don't know why. I don't like it in anything else either. I don't like eggnog ice cream or anything like that. I just like the fucking jug of Dairy Gold cheap ass $1.99. Oh, dude.
We just have a cold beer down here.
Yeah.
And fish. What the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, I want to say thanks to everybody who came. We got to make sure we shut down here so that Skill Up can get out and get about his day and go and take care of the more important things in life. I want to say thank you very much for coming. If you guys get a chance, check out his channel. Amazing stuff. Incredible content. You guys should really make sure to check out everybody's channel here, except for Reg, because it's that game, I'm sorry, that you're playing. I finally went and listened. Xenoblade. That has when you're streaming that, it's so bad. You guys were talking about Discord, and I was like, I'm going to push some people to Reg's channel, and then I heard it, and I'm like, I'm deleting this tweet. There's no way I'm
to be fair, I have disabled the battle sounds because it's so bad.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, wow. That's so bad.
And then Lone,
the audio mixing is just some of the worst ever.
Yeah, it's terrible. Lone has his Twitch channel. You guys need to check it out. He does. I still don't know what I walked into, but a couple days ago, I turned on his Twitch channel and it's like his girlfriend and him talking about life. I couldn't tell if he accidentally hit record because like I'm sitting there going, I just popped in and I don't know if you saw my first post, but I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? I don't. What did I just experience? But he does games and sometimes game discussion, and he's within the industry in some various places. So he's got a lot of knowledge. Check it out. And of course, Matty, who's been my solid bro for quite some time, a bro from another hoe, as I will say.
Oh my God.
Sister from another mister. Lad from another dad. Our friendship was started with KOTOR, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It started with a Fallout post. You liked the review, and then we started talking. And once I find out anybody likes KOTOR, they're basically my best friend forever.
And that's
you have a lot of best friends, then, man.
I personally know has played KOTOR, so it's just like,
yeah, isn't that weird?
Feel that vibe somewhere here.
Yeah, you gotta fill the gap because once you've experienced KOTOR, you can't go back. It's impossible. So I want to say thanks to everybody. This will we may do a podcast next week, but I'm not sure. So this could be the last podcast for December for us. And then I think we're also going to be using this for the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
Yes, correct.
So I want to say thanks to all you people on that channel for watching too. Thanks, everybody. Go ahead and stick around as I close this out. Peace out, everybody, and enjoy your holidays. Or if you don't celebrate holidays, enjoy whatever fucking day that turns out to.